Well, hello, everyone. Thanks for joining us this morning for our new business workshop. I am your host. My name is Katie Julian, and I'm a member of the Taxpayer Services Taxpayer Education Team with the Tennessee Department of Revenue. And on behalf of our Commissioner, David Geragano, we are so happy to have you here today and glad that you are going to hopefully learn some stuff about starting up a new business in Tennessee. I'm joined today by Billy Trout, who is my manager with Taxpayer Education,
Hello,
and,
everybody.
and Dan Vinson, who is our Assistant Director of Taxpayer Services. We are
Hello, dear
happy to have you
friends.
here. Yes, hello, Dan. Just before we start, I want to go over a few things. This is going to be a little bit of a long morning. This is a 3-hour long training. Honestly, to go through everything that to cover everything, this could be a week-long webinar, but we have condensed it down. And one of the main purposes of this is to share a lot of resources with you to help you understand some basics and then know where to go to find answers when you get stumped. So just a few things to go over here. If you have any technical difficulties during this webinar, we have found one of the best ways to handle that is to log out and then back into the webinar. We do have a participant guide. You can use this QR code right here to follow the link and download the PDF. There's also a link in the chat. Like I said, it's going to be 3 hours long, 8:30 to 11:30 Central. We're actually going to take a little more than one break. We're going to take some short breaks in between segments and then open up the chat during those little breaks so that we can come back and then address questions you have regarding the topics that we've just discovered, just learned about. All right, so here we go. Let's get started. I do have a poll going on. It's open. It's closed now, so hope you registered your answer. Let's see what we've got here. Which best describes you? I'm planning to start a new business. Looks like we had a few people that are planning to start a new business. The majority of you have been in business for under a year, which is great. Whichever position you're in here, I think that this training will help you. We've got a few that have been in business for over a year, and a few CPAs, bookkeepers, support people for new businesses. One person that's other, I don't know who, I don't know, what do you do? Anyways, if you're just planning a new business, fantastic. This should be maybe a little bit overwhelming, uh, like drinking from a fire hose, but at least we'll maybe register some key points for you. If you've been in business for a short time, for under a year, there may be some things that you learn about today where you think, oops, I might have not done that correctly. Well, good thing you're here, because one of the things we want to tell you is that it's never too late to kind of correct and fix things. If you think you might be, registered with the wrong type of entity ID number or something like that, we can fix that. And we're going to share resources of how to reach out to us. So regardless of where you are on that spectrum, I hope that this is helpful for you. Okay, so the stuff we're going to go over today, basically how to dot all of your I's and cross all your T's, right? Setting up a business is the first topic we're going to discuss. The the stuff you do before you even get started, really, or as you're getting started. We're going to go over basic tax law, focusing on business tax, sales tax, and franchise and excise tax. We have a lot of different taxes in this state that do affect businesses. We won't be going over every one today, but we'll also share resources with you of where to go if some of the other not so common tax types might affect your business. Again, like I said, lots of resources. We're going to be sharing lots of resources. You might get a little bit dizzy with how often I'm going to switch over and go over to our website, but we have got a very dynamic website with lots of information. We have incredible tax manuals that we've revamped over the last few years that, quite frankly, we on staff at Department of Revenue utilize every single day. It's tax manuals that are in plain English, not legal jargon, with links over to the TCA and law codes, but just really good information. We are, like I said, going to be taking your questions in the chat, which we will open up during each small break in between segments. All All right, getting started here. We have a resource. I actually brought with me here. My husband started up a new business recently, and we got this little postcard in the mail after he registered for his business tax account. And on that postcard is a QR code linking over to this new business landing page that I'm going to tell you all about. You'll see in your PDF guide, there's a link here to this new business checklist. And also in that PDF, this whole image right here is actually a link over to our new business landing page. So I am going to go over there right now, and we're going to start talking about setting up your business, this first tile here. So let's share my web browser. All right, so this is our main tn.gov/revenue page. Let me get this one little box out of the way from WebEx. There we go. So this is our main homepage to revenue, tn.gov/revenue. If you scroll down here, we're going to kind of explore lots of this, but for right now, we're going to focus on this tile down here in the middle towards the bottom called For Businesses. Click there. And then right now, we are going to click on For New Businesses. Let's get started here. This is a great resource for you, especially for you joining us today that have not yet started your business. This worksheet right here, it's a checklist that I also have a link to over in your webinar PDF, but it's a printable worksheet that you can follow along a lot of these steps that we're going to be talking about setting up a business, getting your licenses and permits, establishing your tax accounts. Maybe you're exempt from certain tax accounts. Everything comes together on TinTap, which is our online filing system, kind of like online banking, but for all your tax accounts. And we will be going over today due dates and important information about each of the tax types that we're discussing today. So right now we're going to click on step 1, setting up a business, and go through some of the information that is on this web page. All right, the first topic, I'm going to make this a little bit bigger. Let's see, there we go. 125%. Establishing your business name as you start filling out forms with us, with maybe the Secretary of State, other entities that you're going to be dealing with as you set up your business, maybe vendors. It's going to be really important that you establish a business name that is available. There are a couple links here, the Small Business Association's website about how to select your business name. And most importantly here, Secretary of State's business name availability database. Now, if you're a sole proprietor, which we'll talk about here in a minute, your company's legal name is going to be your legal name. If I was to start a business as a sole proprietor, my business's legal name would be Katie Julian. I would have a DBA, a doing business as Katie's Furniture Store, Katie's Stuff, whatever my business is. So your business address. So building structures of brick and mortar will have a physical location address. All right. If you are a online based business, you still need a real location address. It cannot be a PO box. So if you're a online based business, maybe that's your home address. You can also establish, when you're setting up your accounts with us, a mailing address where you'd like to receive letters from us, important documents. That can be a PO box, but that location address, we have several tax types that are location based, which means tax revenue from where that actual physical location is going to get distributed to the jurisdiction where it's located, your city, if you're located within a municipality, definitely within your county. So location address is where you're physically located. Determining your business structure or entity type. So when you register a business in Tennessee, you've got to register as one of these business types. We call it an entity type. We're not going to go into a real deep dive into this right now. And honestly, we at the Department of Revenue can't advise you on what type of structure that you want to set up. If doing a little bit of research on this website that I'm showing you or elsewhere leaves you a little bit confused, you can get advice from, a tax professional or legal advice on this. But we're just going to really briefly go through this. A sole proprietorship, that is typically one individual in business alone. Most businesses are sole proprietorships in Tennessee. Your entity number is going to be the social security number of that sole person. So earlier when I was telling you about your business's name, that legal name of a sole proprietorship is going to be your name as an individual, and your entity ID number is going to be your social security number. Now, some sole proprietorships will have an FEIN, um, an employer a federal employer identification number. You're going to have to get that if you have employees, for example. But you will not register with us using an EIN if you're a sole proprietorship. The confusing thing about that is, like when you go to, let's say, your county clerk's office to get a business license, more on that later too. Um, you may, if you're a sole proprietorship, let's say you've already been in business for a little while, you may have used your EIN to register for your business license or something else. That's something that you would need to reach out and fix. It's fixable, but just important to note here that a sole proprietorship does register using a social. There is a type of sole proprietorship that's a marital joint. Again, those are set up by as two individuals using both individuals' social security numbers. Partnership. Scroll a little bit up here. Hold on. You've got general partnerships and limited partnerships or limited liability partnerships. Um, The federal name is a general partnership. The primary entity number is going to be the FEIN you will register. That will be the entity ID number you use when you're registering for tax accounts. If you're a general partnership, is your EIN. You can read a little bit more about partnerships here. Limited liability companies offer limited liability. There are two different types. You've got a single member liability company, so that's just one individual that, so the entity has one member basically. The primary number for the single member LLC is either the owner's social security number or the entity's federal employer identification number. And there's also a multi-member LLC, which is one or more individual entities through a special written agreement. Again, going to set up everything using an EIN. Professional limited liability companies, PLLCs, this might be a professional, this is going to be a professional business like an accounting firm or a legal firm. PLLCs are also going to register with the EIN. You've got corporations or corps. This is a more complex business structure. As a chartered legal entity, a corporation has its own rights, privileges, and liabilities. The corporation will register for all tax accounts with us using an FEIN. Federal name is either a corporation or C Corp. If you don't know yet what you are wanting to get set up as, this website will provide a little bit of guidance for you, but I recommend really researching this to figure out what is the best option for you. Oh, also forgot, there's also a nonprofit, which is an organization that's been granted tax exempt status by the IRS. Okay, so very important that you determine structure or entity type. This is something that you can change down the road. We see it all the time where usually it's switching from a sole proprietorship to an LLC or a corp. Regardless, you want to have it in line when you get started and, kind of make up your mind about it before you get started. It's a good idea. Are you going to have to register your business with the Secretary of State? Basically, a sole proprietorship is not going to have to register with the Secretary of State. But if you're a corporation, a limited partnership, LLC, or a business trust, if chartered or organized to do business in Tennessee, you have to register with the Secretary of State and file what they call an annual report. That is going to necessitate a certain tax type that we have here in Tennessee that's called the franchise excise tax that you'll file annually. Also, more on that later, but just something to keep in mind when you decide that you are going to be an LLC corporation, that's going to go along with that, and that registration with the Secretary of State is going to be required there. Some people decide to have a registered agent kind of set all that up for them. You don't have to. My husband, who, like I said, just started a small business, he did all that with himself. They've got a really intuitive online registration system on the Secretary of State's website where you can get yourself set up and actually obtain your articles of organization immediately. Those articles of organization, if you are an LLC or corporation, that's something that it's going to be needed even before you set up a business bank account, stuff like that. So in order of things, these are just items, to check off as you're getting started. Determining an effective business start date. I don't want to gloss over this because it's actually really important in a lot of different ways. Because sometimes you may want to kind of get all this set up before you actually are getting started. Um, Really, the most important thing I want to say about this is to make sure when you're choosing a start date through the forms that you're filling out with us, with the Secretary of State, you're just very cognizant of making sure that it is actually the date that you're going to be starting your business. It's very important, especially when it comes to setting up a sales tax account. If you're a business that's going to be selling tangible personal property or taxable services, if you are really on the ball and you're setting all this up maybe months in advance of when you're actually going to start selling your product or services that is subject to sales tax, that's great, but you want to make sure that that effective start date is when you're actually going to be making your sales. If not, you're just going to have to know that our system, if you put your business start date as today, but you're really not opening till, let's say January 1, our system is going to be looking for a tax return, a sales tax return. No big deal. You can just file it with 0 if you're not making any sales. But if it doesn't if you don't file that return and we're looking for it, then you can get into default. And that's fixable too, but you don't want it to come to that. So just keep that in mind. Are you going to need an EIN number? Very important here. If you, as we discussed earlier, certain entity types are going to need to register for tax accounts and everything using an EIN. But even a sole proprietor might need an EIN if you're going to have employees, right? So that is something that you can also apply for, very easy through the IRS's website, and you can get a EIN number assigned to you immediately, and it'll download the form and everything that you'll need right there in the moment. So very easy to do. Identifying your NAICS code, NAICS, that stands for the North American Industry Classification System code. That is a code that is going to explain what your business does. You're a restaurant, you are going to be selling used furniture, whatever it is, you're going to have an online store, whatever it is, there's a code that goes along with it. You can find your code by searching. Here's a link to it on this website. But that is a code that is going to be required when you're setting up with us, the Department of Revenue, your tax accounts. It's a code that will be used when you are chartering with the Secretary of State. So going ahead and getting that code is something that you can go ahead and figure out now. And maybe your business does multiple things. I believe you're able to add several different NAICS codes when you're setting up with the Secretary of State. With the Department of Revenue, you choose the NAICS code that most primarily fits what your business does. Determining your fiscal tax year. This is a question that's going to be asked on lots of different forms, from your business license to your tax accounts to your Secretary of State registration. Most businesses use a calendar year, which is 12 consecutive months beginning January 1 and ending December 31. But you may choose to have a different fiscal year, which is 12 consecutive months ending on the last day of any month except for December. Something to figure out before you get started. Again, this is something that you can change down the road, but it adds a layer of complication if you do that. Also, identifying directors, officers, and shareholders. Again, this is something that with lots of LLCs and corporations can change over time. It's important that you know that when those changes are made, once you've down the road, once you've established everything with us or the Secretary of State, if that's applicable to you, you'll need to update us and update the Secretary of State if there are changes in directors, officers, or shareholders. All right, lots of boxes to check here. Figuring all this stuff out. I'm going to take you over to the checklist just really quick, just to show you how it kind of goes in line with everything we just discussed. Establishing your business name, your location and mailing addresses, what's your entity type, so on and so forth. All right, next thing we're going to do is talk about your licenses and permits. I'm actually going to this page right here under step 2 gives you some great information about that. But and I recommend you going through this, but I'm actually going to go back over to the presentation to show you a way I've consolidated it into a little chart here. Licenses, permits, and more. Oh my. It's exciting, right? Okay, so a business license. In Tennessee, most businesses, with very few exceptions, very few, we'll talk about those when we're diving into business tax, but are going to need a business license. You obtain that business license locally. Uh, every county in Tennessee, you would go to the county clerk's office, and most actually, municipalities, so cities, towns, also require a business license. So you may fall within both of those. A little later, we'll share with you which municipalities require business license, but those are obtained at the county clerk's or city clerk's office. This day and age, a lot of county clerks, I think almost all county clerks, if not all, and a lot of cities, many municipalities allow you to apply for that license online, which is convenient. Again, we'll talk about this later, but that business license is very connected with our Department of Revenue's business tax. So chartering and business registration, like we've talked about, that is done through the Tennessee Secretary of State. It is required for partnerships, corporations, LLCs, business trusts. That federal employee identification number, the FEIN, you go directly to the IRS through that. Like I said, that's something that you can do online. In addition to being necessary for partnerships, corporations, LLCs, business trusts, if you have employees, regardless of structure, you're going to need that employee identification number as well. Unemployment insurance tax, that's something that's a little confusing in Tennessee. A lot of people think that we handle that because the Department of Revenue handles almost every other tax, but unemployment insurance is actually handled through the Tennessee Department of Labor and Workforce Development, and that's going to be required for all businesses that have employees or payroll. Reach out to them for that. Another thing that's a little bit confusing sometimes is there's a professional license that is required for certain professions like contractors, cosmetologists, insurance agents. That is different than your business license. You can have a contractor's license and a business license, two different things. That professional license is something that's handled through the Tennessee Department of Commerce and Insurance. If you're in a field that requires that, you're probably already aware, but I know there is sometimes confusion about the difference between that professional license and a business license. I was in a county clerk's office one time and a person came in, they didn't have a business license, but they had their contractor's license, and he was really confused. He said, "I've got my license right here." The clerk looked at it and said, "This is your contractor's license. You need a business license as well." So if you're going to sell alcoholic beverages for consumption on premises, also known as liquor by the drink, you're also going to have to get an alcohol license. That is handled by the Alcoholic Beverage Commission here in Tennessee. It is closely tied in with the liquor by the drink tax here as well, but that is regulated and done all through the ABC. Also, so is incidentally a license to sell hemp-derived cannabinoids at this point now too, which lots of law changes about that recently. Your tax accounts, save the best for last here, right? The tax accounts are handled through the state level. Tax accounts are handled through the Tennessee Department of Revenue. Some kind of tax account, even if you have exemptions and don't have to file, or you may have to register, but most businesses are going to have to register with us. Even if you're a nonprofit and are not going to pay taxes, you'll have to register and then register for an exemption. So if you're in here and you're starting up a business, you are most likely going to have to register for some type of tax account here in Tennessee. And we're lucky here as Tennesseans that we don't have an income tax in Tennessee. Most of the revenue, close to 70% of the revenue that operates this state comes in through sales tax, which we all pay if we live here. Visitors that come into our state pay sales tax when they buy things here, right? But the businesses who sell the items that are subject to that sales tax are the ones that actually have to register for the account, collect those taxes, and then remit them. Businesses are integral part of bringing in the revenue in this state through business tax, F&E tax, mostly through remitting that sales tax that they're collecting. So it's real important to understand this and to understand your role as a business in Tennessee. But good thing we don't have an income tax, right? All right, so before we close out this portion, I'm going to share some helpful external resources for you. Then we're going to have a small break. And during that break, we'll take your questions about everything we just discussed. But next, here in about 15, 20 minutes, we're going to start diving into our first tax type that we'll discuss, which is business tax. But here's a few resources I want to share with you that are really helpful. The first one is Tennessee Department of Economic and Community Development, ECD. They have a couple really cool resources called the Smart Start. There's a guide that's this PDF guide you see a link to here, and something called a Smart Start portal. It's kind of a wizard that walks you through setting up a business, kind of brings together a lot of different aspects of setting up a business specifically in Tennessee. There's also the Tennessee Small Business Development Center. You see a link there. The excuse me, the SCORE Association. SCORE is volunteer business counselors, advisors, and mentors who offer individual, either free or low-cost counseling, actually all over the U.S., but there are SCORE Association chapters here in Tennessee. They have online workshops. Topics such as a great one they have is called the Startup Roadmap and Simple Steps for Exiting Your Business, things like that. It's a great resource. Also, the Small Business Administration, they have some great guides on their website about funding programs, federal contracting. They've got some really good learning platforms and local assistance as well. All right, so we're going to take a very short break, only for about 5 minutes if you need to step away. But also, one of the main reasons is I'm going to go ahead and open up this chat right now. Your questions will come directly to Billy and Dan and I and myself. Is that the right way to say that? Let's see. There we go. Chat is open to ask your questions about the stuff we've just talked about. If you could please hold your questions about business tax, sales tax, all that for after we discuss those, just to kind of stay on track here. I just want to reiterate one thing. After everything we've just discussed, if you're wondering if you've set up everything correctly and just want to check with us to verify if you did set everything up, if you're set up directly, correctly, make sure maybe you didn't accidentally set up duplicate accounts. There's so many moving parts. We do recommend that you call us. We're going to share our contact information. You can call or email us. But just don't worry. We're here to help you and here to fix it if needed. So we're going to take a really quick break. Let's say we're back at 5 after. For those of you on Eastern time, that'll be 5 after 10. For those of you on Central time, that'll be 5. Wait, hold on. 5, yeah, 5 after 10 for Eastern time, 5 after 9 for Central time. I'm on Eastern time and I'm always having to make that switch in my head. So see you back in just a few minutes. Put your questions in the chat for us, all right? All right, lots of good questions, you guys. A few of you have said that you weren't able to see my screen when I went over to our website, and I'm not sure if you may need to exit and then come back. Um, got a few people that said they couldn't see the screen share that I had, and then other people no problems with it. So I'm not sure what's going on there. I do recommend if you're experiencing any technical issues, we've always found that leaving the webinar and then coming back is, I know I hate for you to have to miss much, but just keep that in mind that might help. We are recording this, and it will be on our website. Um, I'll show you here in a little while where you go to view the recording of that later. It's the exact place where you went to register for this under taxpayer education. So just to go through a few questions here that are relevant to what we've just been going over. How to change, Lindsay asked us, how do you know how to change your registered business address? That is something, okay, so one thing I want to note is that it's important that your information stays consistent with all the different agencies that you're dealing with. Some people think that just changing it with the Secretary of State, then you'll be good. Unfortunately, our systems do talk to the county clerks and talks to the Secretary of State's office, talks to the TABC about things and about they share data, but address is something that you will want to change at each agency that you're dealing with. So with us specifically, with the Tennessee Department of Revenue, that is something that you can do on TINTAP. You want to be careful for that you're make sure that you're changing which address you're changing. There's several different types of addresses that we have. We mentioned earlier location address and a mailing address, right? There's also something we have called a primary address, which is where a company's records and books are kept. So just be really careful when you're changing your address on TINTAP. We have a revenue help article that's really good telling you how to change your address on TINTAP. We've also done some webinars about that, but you just want to make sure you're changing the right address. Maybe it's all of them, but that is something you can do on TINTAP. You can also send it via email or a support desk ticket to us. We're going to need something in writing, though. Definitely, that's not something that just a phone call could fix. Looks like I think Billy and Dan addressed a lot of the questions that we've had. I'm really sorry, y'all, that some people have had a hard time. I don't know if there's any rhyme or reason to maybe the way you registered or the way you signed in, whether it was maybe through voice or what. Lori asked what would cause a long-standing TINTAP logon to be canceled. I saw that I think Dan answered that. Maybe it was Billy, but basically just a certain amount of time of inactivity for security reasons will cancel that, and you can always set it back up and reactivate it. A question from Erica, is a restaurant bar considered a sole proprietorship or an LLC? So the type of business you are does not dictate what your entity type is. There are some restaurants out there that are sole proprietorships. There are some restaurants that are LLCs and corporations. The entity type is going to be something that you choose as the business owner, what best suits your goals as a business and the way you want to be set up. The type of business it is does not dictate uh, what type of entity you're going to be.
Hey, Katie.
Yes, sir.
Charles asked a question about rental of office space being taxable. I just want to say that we'll probably be addressing this to some degree in the sales tax or the business tax presentation. But the reason I wanted to bring it up is because we get generic questions like what Charles is asking, which is fine. It's a great question. But when we say taxable, what do we mean by taxable? Because we have almost 30 different kinds of tax in Tennessee.
Mm-hmm.
So I feel like Charles is probably asking about sales tax, and we'll learn here in just a few moments that rentals of long-term real estate are not subject to sales tax. But in a lot of cases here, if Charles was talking about business tax, then that's a gross receipts tax, which could possibly have some different tax implications. So anyway, I just wanted to bring that up as a good example of why this stuff is not necessarily always easy, but it is important to that when you're calling us for over the phone or if you're sending us an email, that we're specifically talking about the issue that you have. Okay. And we try to drill down with you, but it's a little difficult sometimes. Okay. Thanks.
Thanks, Billy. So someone just said when they signed out and signed back in and rejoined through the WebEx app. I wonder if the issue is a WebEx one with whether you're signing in through the app or through their web portal. I'm sorry to take the time to do this, but I just want to make sure it's a pretty small group we have in here, but I want to make sure everybody can see it. So what I'm going to do real quick, is go over to our website, and I'm going to keep the app, the chat open for a second. If you could just put in the chat, I just went over to screen share our website. If you cannot see the website, if you could just put in the chat so that Billy and Dan and I know that you're, if you know how you accessed it, are you accessing through when you went to join the WebEx, did you join through the WebEx app or through online? All right, I'm going to go out of it because I can't see y'all's chat when I'm in it, but okay, let's see what's going on here. Thanks for y'all's patience. I hate this. I don't know that this has ever been an issue before. It might be something going on with WebEx. Lene says, cannot see it accessing through the website. So I would say if you didn't see me when I switched over just now, if you could hop back out and come back in the other way. We'll go on another little, like, let's say 2-minute breaks. I don't want you to miss anything because this next part's real important, business tax. Let's take 2 minutes here. And if you were still not able to see what when I went over to the website, go out and back in and go in the other way, whichever way you weren't in. I really hope that works, y'all. Again, if it doesn't work, we are recording this. And what would be really weird is if when I go back to view this recording, if it's not switching over, but we'll see. We have to
And
redo
we'll
the whole
start
thing.
again at 9:15 Central Time.
That works. Let's do that. We'll see y'all at 9:15 Central. Let's go back out and back in if you're having issues. Those of you that left and then rejoined the other way, I'm going to go over real quick and share the website. Let's see. All right, back on the web browser, y'all.
Katie, this looks good on my side. I can
Okay.
see the website on the display.
Okay. Let's see. What say you who Kimberly says okay on my end. Okay, Cora, can't see it. Good on my side. Sean says I joined by the app and I'm able to see the website. Any of you, we're going to have to go ahead and move on here, but anyone that is still having an issue, Hate to lose you. We will be, like I said, having a recording of this on our website. If you want to stay put, it might be kind of difficult. I'll try to verbally say exactly where I'm going on our website because I will be spending a lot of time on it. That's kind of part of the way we structure this training is to show you things on our website.
We
So,
might ask you to also refer to our material that we have online
yeah.
that will have the basics of the grid outline of what we're going through today. So you'll at least have access to that if you can't see everything that Katie's doing. Granted, Katie, just like she said, is going to the website, which is not part of the material, but
hmm
at least you'll have an idea of what we're discussing and the basic idea of it. Okay.
Looks like most people got fixed. I'm seeing,
Yeah, I'm seeing most people on here,
yeah.
Katie, are okay.
Okay.
And I'm sorry for those that are not. That's obviously a systems thing that we don't really have a lot of control
Yeah.
over.
We've
But
never seen this happen before.
yeah, and
Yeah.
we're sorry about that. We'll
I
have
will
somebody
say, I know,
check into it.
sorry to interrupt you, Billy.
Go
I
ahead.
know time is of the essence when you're starting a new business, and this information is important and timely that you get it. But we do offer this quarterly. We'll have another one in January. So for those of you that may want to join again, then yeah, okay.
And that recording will be out there too, so that we'll have information out there that's available as well. And then, of course, you can always email or call us about any of these subjects, and we're always glad to help you.
All right. Okay. So, well, while I'm here on our website, the next thing I wanted to do before we get started on business tax is show you some important tax resources on our website. Um, tn.gov/revenue. If you are a business owner, you need to go ahead and just save this as a favorite. Okay. I want you to use it. You will have questions. Again, you can always reach out to us, but so many answers are at your fingertips here. And I know that you think, yeah, right, we're going to have to search and click, 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 whatever. Okay, well, some places you do have to click a few times, and I'll show you some important places where those are, but the information is here. I think we've got a pretty darn good website, and I've done my recon. I look at other states' revenue websites and tax stuff. I think ours is the best. Not biased. I really do.
Of
So,
course it is, Katie.
right, yes. So tn.gov/revenue. First place I want to take you is to show you all the tax types we have in Tennessee. So you see a heading up here that takes you to a few different places. Taxes is where we're going to go. You can also get there another way by clicking on the tile that says taxes. So we'll just click on the taxes tile and take you over here. As I said, we've got three big ones. The most common that if you are a business in Tennessee, you're probably going to have one or all three of these: business tax, franchise and excise tax, or sales tax. We're going to break down each of those individually today, starting with business tax. There are alcohol, beer, and tobacco related taxes if you are a manufacturer, if you are a restaurant or bar, basically have liquor by the drink on premises. Um, one of these is going to be applicable to you. Other taxes, there's a bunch that falls in here. They're rare. You can just kind of briefly peruse the list just to see if you think one of these might uh, be applicable. And if so, again, we're not going to be going into details today about any of these tax types, but we have several webinars dedicated to them. And these tax pages that we have here are very good for giving you a basic overview. We've also got tax manuals I'll show you, but there we go. Excuse me, allergies. All right, so we're going to start talking about business tax. And before we go back over, um, actually, I'm not even going to go back over to the presentation. I'm just going to show you where we're going on the website to learn about business tax. The first place is going to be the business tax page. Each of our tax pages is set up similarly. You're going to see if you're viewing it on a mobile device, it's going to look a little bit different. You're going to see a little section menu up in the corner if you're viewing it on your phone or I think maybe iPad. But if you're on a desktop or on a laptop, if you're on a computer, you're going to see links over here for each tax type: due dates and rates, registration and licensing. And then from there on out, each of the different taxes is going to kind of have some different things here. For business tax, we've got classifications. Are you retailer or wholesaler? I'll explain all this in a minute. Different deductions, exemptions. There's always going to be a tax guidance link for each tax type. I'll show you what that looks like. It's going to have a link directly over to the tax manual, any other applicable manuals. Tax articles, these are help articles in our revenue help section that are specific to business tax. Any important notices that we have, any rulings. I'm going to take you here real quick. This is the city and county business tax dashboard. Remember earlier I was telling you that all counties have business license and business tax, which are tied together, but some municipalities do and some don't. If you click on this dashboard, there is a way to download a printable version of this graphic here. But basically, if you hover over a county, it'll show you which municipalities within that county impose business tax. And when we say business tax and licensing, tax and licenses are interchangeable. The business tax and the business license are tied together, okay? So looks like here that in Hamilton County, I'm having, because I've got my font set to high, I've got to kind of, okay. So you can see here that most of the municipalities that are within Hamilton County do impose business tax, but it looks like the municipality of Ridgeside does not. So if your business is located in Ridgeside within Hamilton County, you'll need a Hamilton County license, but no city license or municipality license. Same with the town of Walden. If you have a business based in Walden, you'll need that Hamilton County license, but there's no jurisdictional license. Chattanooga, Collegedale, East Ridge, Lakeside, Lookout, Red Bank, Signal Mountain, Soddy, Daisy, all of those, if your business is located in one of those municipalities, you'll need both the county and the municipal level business license. So two licenses, all right? A good resource there. Forms, each of our tax pages is going to have forms. I will go ahead and say all taxes are required to be filed online on TINTAP. All right. There are special waivers that you can have if you don't have internet access. It's real hard to get one of those waivers. But basically, you want to file everything online anyways, because there are lots of benefits to that. And we'll talk about that later. But sometimes I like to point people to the tax return paper forms just to look at them. The way some people's brains work, it might be easier to look at it this way. And also, sorry to make you dizzy, but I'm going to scroll here to instructions. That's something that I personally, when I was learning about the tax types, lots of places you can learn, but it just the way my brain works, it helped me to read the instructions for the returns to understand it. So but again, all filing is required online. So to one other place, let's see, I wanted to take you over to the tax manual. There's another way to get to all of our tax manuals that I will show you, but within each specific tax page, you can go over to the manual. We recommend that if you're going to save a link to one of these manuals with a tax type that you work a lot, you just save the main link, because if you save the actual PDF link of the current tax manual, it's going to be outdated. Because as you can see, if I click on archived version here, every time there's a law change, or maybe it's just a edit that we have to make for whatever reason to a manual, we update it and have a new version of it. Okay, you can see all the previous versions here. So this current one is the one that was published in June of 25. I'm going to go ahead and click into it. It's a PDF. But yeah, save just the main tax manual page, not the actual manual, because as you can see in the what's that called, the URL up here, this is just the June 2025 version, the most current version. So each of our tax manuals is set up similarly. It is a PDF. If you learn during today's webinar that you are subject to business tax, or if you're already in business and you know you have business tax, I'm going to recommend that you take a few moments later in all of your spare time, right? And just peruse this. Don't read all 178 pages unless you think that sounds fun. But I recommend seeing how it's laid out and seeing what's in here just to see what is applicable to you. You can click directly to each section in the table of contents from the table of contents. You can also, just like with any web page, do Control F and type in a word, contractor. And it tells you here we've got 150 instances of the word contractor. If you just are, it's one of those ways that when you're having a question about something, you go to the tax manual. The tax manuals have great examples. Like I said, it's not just legalese. They are put in, they are written in terms to be easily understood, and I just really want to, I can't encourage you enough to utilize this as a tool when you have tax questions. All right, so now where I'm going to go to teach y'all about business tax is actually our webinar that we did. So back to the top, tn.gov/revenue, our main homepage for revenue. If you go down to taxpayer education and outreach tile, and there's going to be a few tiles here. This business tax workshops, that's where you went to register for today. That's where the video, the recording of today's uh, training is going to be over here in new business tax workshops. But right now we're going to take you over to tax webinars. We have a free tax webinar every month. It's with some exceptions due to federal holidays and stuff. But it's always the last Tuesday of the month. We always have one every month, almost always the last Tuesday of the month. This month, the webinar is going to be on the last Tuesday of the month, October 28th, and it's going to be about filing the F&E tax return. Um, Webinar video library. All right, so this is where we have, at this point, 72 webinars. We're going to soon be redoing some of our older webinars, so that number might change a little bit. But right now we've got 72. You can view them all or view 50 at a time by choosing that. We've got, this is the actual webinar. If you click on this link, it'll take you over to YouTube and you can watch the hour-long webinar. You can see we've got them all categorized by tax type. The PDF, you can download a PDF version. That's what we're going to go through today for business tax. So I'm just going to type in business tax. Okay, so what comes up here are several. Started to type in the word business tax, and this is what the search results reveal. Webinars about business tax basics. That's what we're going to go through, this PDF here in just a minute. We have a webinar dedicated to business tax deductions, business tax for contractors, some law changes that was relevant to a big business tax law from a couple years ago. How to close a business. That's actually applicable to lots of different tax types, but just so you see how this webinar video library works. All right, so we are going to go to Business Tax Basics and click on the presentation of it, the PDF, and I'm just going to walk you through most of this to explain business tax to you. This was from January 2024, so a little not too long ago, but there's not been changes to business tax law that are relevant to the basics of it. All right. Um, an overview of what business tax is. Business tax is a privilege tax on the privilege of doing business by making the sales of tangible personal property and services within Tennessee and its local jurisdiction. That is the technical, that is what business tax is. We're going to be talking about who is liable for it, how do you register for it, how it ties in with the licensing, who's exempt. There are some credits and deductions you can take on the business tax return. Filing the return, it's a pretty simple return, with the exception of for contractors. It gets a little more complex for contractors and for some other business types. But anyways, and we'll share with you some other resources. So who is liable for business tax? I'm going to actually go a little so we can see the whole thing. You have to have all three of these conditions met. You have to have substantial nexus, which is kind of a tax tie to Tennessee. You have to be engaged in taxable activities, so activities that are subject to business tax, and have over 100,000 in gross sales attributed in Tennessee. Then you're going to be liable for business tax. You're that over 100 in sales, you may still need a license if you're under, or most likely will still need a business license if you're under 100, but that's called a minimal license. But if you make under 100, you won't be liable for business tax. I've got a graphic that explains that here in just a minute. So we're going to kind of dive into what does nexus mean. Um, Substantial nexus for Tennessee business tax is going to include one of a few different things, either or here. So if you are organized or commercially based in Tennessee, that's your typical, you're a business based here. That means you have nexus, obviously, okay? If you own or use capital in Tennessee, all right, that means you have nexus. Or systematic and continuous business activity here that's producing gross receipts attributed to people in Tennessee, or if you have what they call a bright line presence. All of those things are going to give you nexus here and make you liable for business tax, or kind of check off one of those. I'm going to explain bright line presence next. What is bright line presence? Bright line presence is meeting one of these criteria. Either the total Tennessee business receipts exceed the lesser of 500,000 or 25% of a business's total receipts everywhere during a tax period. And let me just say this bright line presence is more geared towards out of state businesses. Again, if you are organized, domiciled here in Tennessee, you've already met the business tax requirement by being organized here. Okay, so this is kind of Brightline Presence is kind of more for out-of-state businesses, but also in addition to business receipts exceeding the lesser of 500K or 25% of the receipts. Average value of real and tangible personal property owned, rented, or used here in Tennessee is the lesser of 50K or 25% of the business's total TPP, or if the total amount of compensation paid by a business in Tennessee exceeds 50K or 25% of that business's total compensation. That really came into play after COVID, and a lot of people became remote workers and could move anywhere they wanted to. A lot of people moved here for various reasons. Again, we don't have an income tax and whatever. So if a company based not in Tennessee does have compensation paid to employees here exceeding that, then that's going to put them on the line for business tax. They still have to meet that other criteria that I talked about, but we're going to talk about that next. So what are the activities that mean that if you're engaged in them, then you are subject to business tax? The sale of tangible personal property in Tennessee or delivered into Tennessee. The sale of a service that is delivered into Tennessee, or leasing or renting of tangible personal property located in Tennessee. All right, that's pretty simple there. That gross sales threshold of 100K or more. So if a business has that substantial nexus, engaged in an activity, and has over 100K in sales attributed to any county in Tennessee, then the business must register and file for Tennessee business tax. All right, so how does it tie in with licensing? This is actually kind of a chart. The first column here being where your gross sales annually lie, the license column, whether a license is required or not and what kind. Is business tax registration required is the third column, and last and not least, how do you renew that license? Okay, so let's start at the top here. If you make under 3K in gross sales annually, that means all your receipts together with no deductions yet, just what all did you bring in? Not talking about what you paid out in rent and in inventory, any of that. We're talking gross sales. Under 3K, I remember somebody asked this in the chat a few minutes ago. They're just selling at just very little, like under 1,000. If you make under 1,000 gross sales annually, no business license is required. Therefore, obviously, no business tax, no renewal since there's no license. At that point, we're kind of considering it maybe just a hobby, or it's building, not yet there. Make under 3K. Don't really need anything with regards to business tax or licensing. If you make between 3,000 and 100,000 annually in gross sales, you are going to be required to obtain a minimal business license from your local clerk. Business tax is not required though. If you make between 3 and 100, no business tax. This is a law change. This is a change that took place a couple years ago. This threshold used to be different, but if you're a new business, we're not even really gonna get into that right now. As far as you know, if you make between 3K and 100K in annual gross receipts, you just need a minimal business license, and annually you will renew that license. It's $15 a year. You'll renew it directly with your local clerk, city and or county. Or county, possibly city, if you're within a city that requires business license. Okay, now if you are a business that makes over 100K in gross sales annually, you're going to obtain what's called a standard business license from your county clerk. That initial business license you'll obtain from your clerk, all right? You will be required to file an annual business tax return based on your gross receipts. And here's what's interesting. With a standard business license, you don't go back to the clerk to renew it every year. It will get renewed automatically by your clerk when you file your business tax. That's information we share with the county and city clerks. We send a clearance file to them, letting them know who has filed and paid business tax. That lets them know then who to renew a license for. That's just the way the law in Tennessee is set up. The local clerks are the administrators of the business license. You're required to file with us for that standard license, but then they are the ones that actually renew it. If you hold a standard business license, other than filing, you'll just file that return each year, you will never go back to your clerk. If you need to switch back and forth between a minimal and a standard based on your annual gross receipts for any particular year. Let's say you're a new business and for starters, you don't think you're going to meet that 100K requirement. I recommend starting with a minimal business license, okay? Then if you find that you reached that limit, at that point, then you can reach out to us and the clerk, and we'll explain to you how to switch over to a standard when that time comes. Or if you start off as a standard and don't quite meet that 100K and want to switch down to a minimal, therefore not have to file business tax, reach out to us and we will switch your account to filing not required, and we will let the clerk know as well that you switched to a minimal. There's just a little line there, that 100K threshold. If you float around that, adds a little bit of complication, but you just want to make sure that you have the correct kind of license, and most importantly that you file for business tax if you make over 100. The rules are a little different for contractors with gross sales, and we have a whole webinar dedicated to that. If you're a contractor, I'm going to recommend you go to our webinar video library and watch that webinar. So this is about that new threshold that was new at the time we first did this webinar. I'm not even going to confuse you with that right now. All right, this is important. Business tax registration. So you see here, number one, first and foremost, when you obtain a standard business license locally, if you go in and get the standard business license from your city or county clerk, that is going to automatically register you for business tax, all right? After you receive that license, you're going to get a letter from us because, like I said, our systems talk. We will have information in our system that you got that license locally. You'll get a letter from us that says, hey, you now have a business tax account. We advise all of our clerks to let you guys know that when you go in to get your license, if you're getting one of those standard license, which is expecting to gross over 100 annually, to let you know, hey, you've got a business tax account now. Hopefully they do that, but if not, that letter's important too. If you didn't find that out from your clerk, and if you somehow that letter got lost in your junk mail or something, it's important to know that you are still registered and you're on the hook for filing business tax if you have a standard business license. I already showed you this dashboard over on our tax page. That's the little map of Tennessee where you could hover over each county to know if which municipalities require business tax and licensing. The other way you can register for business tax, again, I want to caution you to be really careful about this, because if you already have a license, you're registered with us, okay? But if you don't, and just need to go ahead and register a location on TNTAP before you've gotten that license, then you can do that on TNTAP. If you've already got a TNTAP account, you can go into more and then manage accounts and then register a new account, okay? Or register a new location. I just want to caution you that if you do that, then you will still have to go to the local clerk and purchase that $15 license if it's a new location that you are registering. All right, a brief overview of business tax here. Let's see. Okay, so business tax is a tax that is based on gross sales. It's all, which means all sales derived from the products or services that you sell. All right, gross with no deductions. There's more information in our business tax manual about how to determine your gross sales, but it's pretty simple. Now you're going to multiply that amount by a rate. All right. The business tax rate is based on two things. What classification you are, and what classification you are depends on your dominant business activity. Everybody only has one classification. That classification is determined when you first set up your business tax account or register for, or purchase your business license. I'm going to stop here and caution you on one thing because I've seen this happen multiple times. Some of the classifications are determined by Tennessee statute. You fall into one of 5 classifications. We'll talk about that next slide, I think. But I have seen it before where whether it's just an oversight or confusion at the clerk's office where someone is set up with one classification at the city and a different classification at the county. That will set up 2 different locations for you. So it's real important if you are a business that's located within a municipality, just that's something to make sure is that that your classification is lined up on both your county license and your city license. All right. Just a side note there. It's also, that rate is also going to be determined based on whether you're a retailer or a wholesaler. That's something you won't know a lot of times until you're at the end of your fiscal year. The way you know it is if 50% or more of your sales were wholesale sales, then you are considered a wholesaler. And a wholesale sale is a sale to another retailer, okay? The wholesale rate is just a little lower than the retailer rate. So you're going to take your gross sales, multiply that by your rate, and then there are a few deductions and credits. Deductions are going to reduce tax liability. Credits are going to offset liability. We are going to just touch on that here in a little while. The business tax return is due on the 15th day of the 4th month following your fiscal year end. For a fiscal year end of December 31st, the 15th day of the 4th month is April 15th. That's the day most of us have in our heads for taxes, right? If you have a different fiscal year, then it's not going to be April 15th. It'll be the 15th day of the 4th month following the end of your fiscal year. Lots of resources I have to share here with you about filing the tax return. There's information about filing business tax in our business tax manual. We have a whole webinar dedicated to filing the business tax return. And there's a help video on our website about filing the business tax return, like how to get to it and everything on TINTAP. It's a pretty easy return. And I say that with a grain of salt, but it's a lot of people find that it's not too complicated of a tax return. Oops, I didn't mean to do that. What am I doing? Oh, scrolling down. Just a snapshot here of the different rates. As I mentioned, there's 5 different classifications. There's some subtypes to class 1, class 2, class 3, class 4, class 5, A and B. And you can see here super low rates for business tax. This is the retailer rate and the wholesaler rate. All right, choosing what classification you are. If you you really want to make sure this is right. In a perfect world, honestly, if I made the laws in this state, I'd probably say let's just have no classifications. It's just one flat one because things get so confused here. You can see our statute very specifically lists where you fall for the most part. All right, let's look at what's in blue here. Class 1, A, B, C, and D, just some very specific things listed here as the dominant business activity. 1A is going to be like a grocery store, food and beer for home preparation, because restaurants are somewhere else. Lumber, building materials, 1B. Hay, grain, feed, maybe that's a co-op, 1C. Gas at retail, that's a gas station. Gas at wholesale. All right, class 2. Our law very specifically mentions certain tangible personal property, okay? It just very specifically lays out cars, clothing, home furnishing, prescription drugs, prepared food, that means restaurant, deli, coal, wood, ice, fuel, oil, cut flowers, advertising specialties. Okay, very specific there, right? I'm going to talk about this catch-all here in a second because first I just want to say that look at 3, class 3. It's got some more very specific TPP, very specific stuff listed here in our law. Okay. Class 3 is also services. If you sell something that you don't see specifically listed as tangible personal property or anywhere else, if you don't see it listed here, then you're a class 2, because class 2 is what we consider a catch-all for any tangible personal property that's not specifically listed anywhere else. All right, class 4 are basically contractors constructing or improving real property, installing TPP, if you install appliances, something like that, exterminators, and selling of livestock and receiving commissions from the sale of farm products. Class 5 is pretty rare. This is industrial loan and thrift and natural gas marketers. These are going to register, these types of businesses will register directly with us and not at the local level for a business license. All right, so real quick, I said as services, the sales of services are class 3. All right, there are some services that are exempt, okay? These services. So their services are subject to business tax unless very specifically exempt. So if you are exempt, no business license is needed, no business tax is due, unless the business also makes sales of tangible personal property. It's the service for these businesses that is exempt. Just to name a few here: accounting, bookkeeping, architecture, engineering, legal services, medical, dental, allied health, veterinary. Okay, an example of a service that's exempt, but that business may also sell things that are subject to business tax and licensing is a veterinary service. Okay, certain vets offices are going to have a little shop maybe in the front where they sell pet food, toys, leashes, things like that. Those items are going to be subject to the same threshold that business tax and licensing. So if you make between 3 and 100,000 annual in those sales of tangible personal property, you need a minimal license, but not no business tax. If you make over 100 in the sale of tangible personal property or the taxable services, even if you're one of these, if you make over 100 in those, then you are going to be subject to needing a business license, a standard license, and business tax. So a common one there may also be like a med spa. So you've got a medical, it's a medical office because they do medical procedures and stuff, but they may sell a lot of items. Lotions, creams, all that kind of stuff. A dental office that might sell electric toothbrushes or water picks, whatever. Those are tangible personal items of tangible personal property that would be subject. But other than that, these services are exempt from business tax. Other types of entities that are excluded from business tax are going to be manufacturers, and to qualify for the to be exempt from business tax, that manufacturer must have an industrial machinery exemption for sales tax. Very important there. Trucking companies offering services to the public, like common carriers, are exempt from business tax. Any person operating vending machines who exercises the option of paying what's called the gross receipts tax. If you do gross receipts tax, you don't owe business tax, and that's for vending machine operators. Newspaper route carriers and newspaper peddlers, um, institutions operated for religious or charitable purposes with respects to profits earned from the sale of contributed items. That's contributed items, okay? 501 or C3 or 4 entities whose only taxable business activity during a tax period is at the Tennessee State Fair or only one county fair. Making sales or rental of real property that belongs to them. Okay, so if I sell my home, the proceeds from that are not considered gross receipts for business tax. Okay, now sales or rental of real property, like if I'm selling booth space at a flea market, if I'm selling other kinds of spaces, storage spaces, that's not rental or sale of real property that belongs to me, so that would be subject. Radio and TV stations, publishers and printers of newspapers. Okay, but other than that, the business tax net is cast very wide. Most of you in here, I would be surprised with this. We've got a pretty small, medium-sized group in here. Most of you are probably going to be subject to business license, and then if you make over 100, business tax. A few deductions just to keep in mind. And like I said, we do have a whole webinar dedicated to business tax deductions. But just so you know, if you're just getting started, these are the types of things that are and you definitely want to save all of your records and everything for when it comes tax time. But just so you know, when it comes tax time, there are a few things to keep in mind that are going to be able to be used as deductions. All right, such as sales of services received by persons located in other states. If you're a service provider and you maybe let's say you're based in Chattanooga, Hamilton County, and you're providing your service you're going to Fort Oglethorpe, Georgia to do service for your business, that is something you can deduct on your business tax return. Returned merchandise when the sales price is refunded to a customer, you can deduct that out. Sales of tangible personal property in interstate commerce, that means the customer takes possession of the TPP, whatever item it is, outside of the state. That's going to really apply to you online businesses. Keep very good records about which um, also for sales tax purposes, we're not talking about sales tax yet, but for business tax purposes, which sales are getting delivered to customers out of state. That's different than if the customer takes possession of the item that you're selling here in Tennessee. So if I have a storefront here in Tennessee and a customer from Georgia comes into my store, buys it, walks out the door with it, that's not considered interstate commerce because they're taking possession of it here in Tennessee. But if I'm going to mail that item to them and they're going to receive it in Georgia, that's a sale in interstate commerce. Cash discounts allowed and taken on sales. Repossessions, that's going to be applicable if you are like a car dealer, for example. Same with trade-in values. Other industries, types of businesses may work in that too, but again, that's mainly applicable to car dealers. Bad debts are also able to be deducted. This is real big for contractors. Amounts paid by a contractor to a subcontractor. So if you are a class 4 contractor and you are subbing out work, your homeowner, your customer, whatever, is going to write you one big check for that contractor job that you performed, right? Well, you might have paid a subcontractor a good bit. The whole amount of that check that you received as gross receipt from your customer goes into line 1 of your business tax return as gross receipts, but then you can deduct out everything you paid to a subcontractor on that job. It's a form, a worksheet within the business tax return. I would just caution you, if you're going into the contracting business, to really keep good records about how much is paid out to a subcontractor for each job. And then of course, before you even hire a subcontractor, you want to make sure that they have you want on file a business license or their contractor's license, because that information is going to be required when you fill out the subcontractor worksheet for business tax. All right. There are some miscellaneous federal and state excise taxes that you can deduct. All right, so we're going to talk about when to file. We already mentioned this. It is due, the business tax return is due on the 15th day of the 4th month following the end of the fiscal year. Very important to note here, your business license is not going to expire until 30 days after business tax is due. This confuses some people, so don't look at that business license where it says this license expires on May 15th and think that you have until May 15th to file business tax. You can file business tax on May 15th, but you're going to owe penalty and interest because your tax return's late at that point by a month. So there is no option for filing extension with business tax. F&E, there is. We'll talk about that later. But business tax, there's no option for filing extension. Sometimes the commissioner or the governor will have a filing extension available if there's natural disaster in the area. On a case-by-case basis, such as like severe natural disaster, you can petition to, you can request to the Department of Revenue for a filing extension if your business burnt down, let's say. Okay, now obviously you're going to need a little extra time, but it's very rare to get an option for filing extension for business tax. So I'm not going to really get into how to file business tax right now, other than to tell you there's a little bit of information here in the business tax basics PDF, but there's lots more information on the whole webinar dedicated to filing the business tax return. All right. Just going to kind of glaze over that real quick. On how to close business tax, we're going to talk about each basics tax webinar is going to have a page about how to close, but just recently we dedicated a whole webinar to closing down your business. I know this is a webinar or training for new businesses, but at some point if the business comes to a close, it's very important to close properly. It's not uncommon that businesses close improperly and end up in collections just due to oversight or skipping a step in closing down everything properly. So I'm going to just make sure you understand it is important to close well, to end well, and we've got resources out there, specifically a whole webinar dedicated to how to close your business. So yeah, so I'm going to go ahead and come to a stopping point here. I did just share this PDF link. That's what we did, was we were there. Uh, if you have the PDF of this whole training, this is actually a link over to the video, the YouTube video of the 1 hour long Business Tax Basics webinar. I see that chat was inadvertently left open during this. Billy,
Where was it ever, Katie?
okay. Well,
Good times.
yeah. Do we want to should we take a quick break? And since it's been open, maybe we just go ahead and talk about some of these questions that came about before we.
Yeah, let's go ahead and
Okay.
talk about a couple of things here too. I think a lot of the questions Dan and I were able to get to. Some we were not. We got a couple of people asking sales tax questions. Hey, guess what? We haven't talked about sales tax yet, so
Yeah.
hold the phone. Okay, let's talk about sales tax in a few minutes. Um, Colleen Powers, Tax Pro with a client that has a partnership LLC. They are a band that performs up to 100 shows a year, but a few of them are in Tennessee. Are their gross receipts out of state subject to Tennessee sales tax? Again, the answer to that will be forthcoming, but the answer is no. It would be interstate commerce. And we'll learn more about that in just a little bit here too. And Daniel, on your photography things, they're basically subject to Tennessee business tax because they're not excludable. There's nothing in the law that excludes photographs from that. So that would be the situation. Joshua asked, do businesses have a credit score? Beats me. I don't know. That's not the Tennessee Department of Revenue, but
I don't think so. I don't
I
know.
don't think that's the case, but you'd have to ask somebody else. I'm sorry, dude. We don't really know the answer to that. Apologize for that.
Good question, but we
And
don't know.
what else do we have here? Can you restate the information a contractor needs from subcontractors? So basically it's the name and the address of those subs, and we're going to need to either have the business license number of that sub, or we're going to need their Tennessee contractor's license number. Okay, so that's the kicker right there. That's really what we're saying, right, Katie? That sounds right,
Yes.
doesn't it?
Yep.
Just make it up if it's not. I'm just kidding.
I'm
Let's see.
actually, hold on a second. I'm going to take y'all over right now real quick to because I know that contracting is a pretty common business. Remember how I was telling you a little while ago that I like to look at the paper form sometimes just to see because it's there. Let me just show you what's on the share web browser. What's on the page? Um, this is the business tax paper form. Um, Schedule C, which is the subcontractor worksheet. You need their name, address, contractor's license, business license number, and where it's issued by, the amount paid to the date paid and the amount paid.
Mm-hmm.
That's the information for each subcontractor. So,
And by the way, little advertising for the 10 tap system, the electronic system. Please, oh please do this electronically,
oh yeah, you
because
have to.
it's, well, first of all, it's required by law. If you don't, then you could be subject to an electronic filing penalty. That doesn't happen that often, but it does happen. The other part of that is it's so much easier and unbelievably easier to do it that way. And then you'll know for sure you've got all your figures in correctly mathematically that way as well. Samantha asked a question, does business tax apply to out-of-state contractors? It does. If you have certain criteria that you meet from a nexus standpoint, and I think Katie mentioned the business tax manual which has lots of information about this. So Samantha, the tax itself would apply, but there's no licensing requirements from the local governments unless you happen to be a contractor doing business in Tennessee with $100,000 or more of gross receipts in any particular county or city in Tennessee. Okay, that's the quick answer on that.
Should we move along to sales tax and put a different hat on here? And I like to, hopefully we'll have some time at the end if any questions don't get answered. Were there any
Yeah, let
others
me
that you
hit one
wanted
real
to?
quick, Katie, then
Sure.
we'll move on. Erica asked, does fiscal year mean the year ends 12/31 and pay taxes on April 15th? Um, I guarantee for almost everybody on this call, maybe even every single person, the answer to that is yes, because guys, you are mostly on a calendar year basis, January through December. So Erica, if you start your business in June, that makes no difference. You're just going to basically be paying tax from when you open the door through the end of December. And of course, business tax is due on April 15th, just like the federal taxes are due from the IRS. Okay. But there are businesses out there that have other fiscal year ends, like, any of the other 11 months, but it's very, very rare. And your fiscal year has to match the IRS's fiscal year. And trust me, not too many people do that. Okay. Especially new businesses.
Right.
Okay. All right.
Real quick, Anna says, can the contractor number be their social security number or EIN number? No, the law very specifically says on to be able to deduct payments made to a subcontractor, you have to provide their business license number and their contractor license number.
Colleen, for the band, the out-of-state band, that is that those receipts for business for monies received outside of Tennessee are also in interstate commerce, similar to the sales tax law. Okay, hope that helps.
One more, Jared is asking, is it possible to change the fiscal year in for a business? It is. There may be, depending on how long if you've already paid taxes, there might be where you have to file a short period, especially for F&E. Well,
Right, but here's the kicker, y'all. You've got to prove to us that your fiscal year is what it is by sending us a copy of your federal tax return, your last filed tax return, the first page that has the fiscal year on it, or some other documentation from the IRS that shows what your fiscal year is. We will not just change it because of somebody sending in an email. We have to have that proof because we have to match IRS.
mhm.
It has to be a year, the same year end. So that's the way that we ensure that it's done right. Okay. But yes, it can be done, just like Katie says.
All right. Uh, guys, we're going to go ahead and turn off chat for a little while so we can force you to focus.
And this is one that
Right?
needs a lot of focus because this is the big bear.
Yeah. And a difficult part here with sales taxes, you've got to change hats, okay? We leave everything you just learned about business tax behind. We are switching over to a whole different tax type, and that is sales tax. So, um, same as with business tax, I'm going to take you over to the website. Sure hope that everyone's able to see that now. Okay. So we're on our website. I'm going to go back to the revenue homepage, tn.gov/revenue. Remember when I showed you the business tax page, I told you you could either get to it by clicking taxes here or the taxes tile. We're going to click the tile and go over to sales and use tax. Just like business tax, you've got kind of a section menu over here. Looks a little different than business tax because there are specific pages dedicated that are just relevant to sales tax, but just like with business tax, information about the due date and tax rates, registration for it, so on and so forth. Okay. There are lots of forms with sales tax. You have to file sales tax online using TINTAP, and we are slowly but surely migrating a lot of sales tax exemptions to online filing where you can file for the exemption online, but not all are there yet. But just kind of showing you what all's here under tax guidance. It's kind of set up similar to, you can click on the tax manual. It's awesome, just like the business tax manual. This takes you over there. Okay, just more information there. Local tax rate map. We're going to talk about that when we're going to walk through the sales tax basics webinar, and we'll get into all this stuff then. But I just wanted to show y'all where the tax page was. Depending on how your brain works, when you have questions about it, you can go to the webinar PDF. You can go over to the tax manual. You can start here on just the tax page. I'm going to show you revenue help later. Lots of different areas that where you can find the same basic information, but honestly, those tax manuals have the most extensive amount of information, but that could be a little much if it could overwhelm you. So just wanting to show you the different places you can find information. So, okay, back over to Revenue's homepage, tn.gov/revenue. I'm going to take you back over to webinars. That's down under taxpayer education and outreach. And then click on tax webinars. And then click on, let's see, in the search, I'm going to type in the word sales tax. I think we'll probably have a lot of stuff come up here. Just want to show you everything we've got that comes up. Tons of sales tax webinars that we have. So, if we don't touch on a specific topic that you want to know a little bit more about during this like long but short 3-hour webinar, there's a good chance we have a webinar, an hour-long webinar dedicated to it. But okay, there's sales tax basics. Look, okay. I'm going to click on the PDF of that, and we're going to walk through that presentation just to teach you about the basics of sales tax. So as I mentioned earlier, sales tax is the principal source of revenue in this state. It's actually over 60% of all collections. It's comprised of two parts, a state part and a local part. The general state sales tax rate is 7%, and then that local rate is going to vary by county and or city. So we're going to talk here during this little session about who and what is subject to sales tax. We're going to discuss rates, exemptions, and then share some resources. This is the pie chart that shows you just how much is in Tennessee. It's a breakdown of state revenue sources. The big blue area here is sales tax, right? Franchise and excise is another big piece of the pie, and then everything else is pretty small. The business tax revenue is so small you can't even see it. The feel-good part of sales tax is that the majority goes towards education in Tennessee. That's 56 cents out of every dollar. 28 cents goes into our general fund, and then 16 cents of every dollar goes directly back to the local government. Resources here, the manual, the tax page, and revenue help. Okay, this is where I wanted to get to. I'm sorry if this is too small for you. If you want to kind of zoom in, you can, but I want you to see this whole page here. This is sales tax basics. So the tax applies to dealers engaged in the business of making sales of taxable products or services. Okay, retailers are responsible for the tax and are to collect the tax from consumers. There are some exceptions to that. If you buy something out of state, like you buy your car out of state, and the dealership where you bought it is not registered for tax here in Tennessee, and you didn't pay Tennessee tax, you're going to pay it when you go register it, things like that. But this is just generally speaking. Okay, so the basics here: sales of tangible personal property are almost always taxable, unless there's a product that the law specifically exempts, like textbooks. There are a few items of tangible personal property that are exempted by law, okay? But other than that, just think of it this way. If you're selling something you can touch or feel, tangible personal property, it's probably subject to sales tax. Now, on the flip side of that, sales of services are generally not taxable unless specifically listed by the law or are part of the sales price of tangible personal property. We'll dive a little bit further into that. As I just stated, it's based on the sales tax rate, the state tax rate plus the local tax rate, and that's going to equal the total tax. State generally is 7%. There are some special rates. Local rates are no more than 2.75. So in Tennessee, you're not going to pay more than 9.75 in sales tax. Now, granted, we do have one of the higher sales tax rates in the whole country, but I repeat, no income tax here, right? That state rate is going to be a little different and some special rates are applicable to food, specified digital products, items that we call single articles, so like big items that are over $1,600 in sales price. There's a special way to apply tax there. We'll get into that a little bit. Use tax is a companion tax to sales tax, all right? It is due when sales tax was not collected on something, on an otherwise taxable product that was brought or shipped or used in Tennessee. It applies to all items otherwise subject to sales tax except for services and amusements are not subject to use tax. So use tax does apply to businesses in the sense that if you bought something, if you're a business and you bought something using your resale certificate, we'll talk about those resale certificates here in a few, but if you bought something using your resale certificate, but then you ended up having to use it in your business instead of selling it, some business you'll have to pay use tax on that, and it's a line on your sales tax return. Uh, when we did this sales tax basics webinar, we had not yet had our use tax webinar, but now we have. It took place about a year ago in December of 24. So there is a webinar dedicated to use tax if you want some more information on that. So who needs to register for sales tax? So if your business has a physical presence in Tennessee, based here in Tennessee, yes, if the answer to that question is yes, then you have a few more questions to ask yourself. If your in-state tangible personal property sales threshold, if the sales threshold of 4,800 annually is met, if you're going to have 4,800 in sales of TPP annually, you're going to need to file sales tax or register and file for sales tax. Okay. If your in-state service sales threshold meets a $1,200 amount, then you will have to register for sales tax, charge sales tax, and remit it to the state. If not, if those thresholds are not met, then you are not required to register for sales tax and file sales tax. If your business is not physically located in Tennessee, if you have a sales threshold of $100,000 or more within a 12-month period of economic nexus, so sales into Tennessee of $100,000 within a 12-month period, then you are going to need to register and file for Tennessee sales tax. Also substantial nexus if it's met. More information about that, we have a whole webinar dedicated to reporting out-of-state sales by delivery destination, how to do that. We're not going to go into a lot about out-of-state businesses right now when it comes to sales tax. All right, the tax on tangible personal property. So this is just a little bit about the difference between tangible personal property and real property. So TPP is defined as something that can be seen, weighed, touched, so on and so forth, perceptible to the senses. Real property is that which is immovable. That's the main thing there, real property. So like attached to the ground in concrete or something, right? Land, buildings, improvements, firmly attached integrated structures like light fixtures. There's a little bit more about that in our sales tax manual if you are confused about whether something that you're selling is considered real or tangible. All right. Remember I said that most services are not subject to sales tax unless the law specifically says that they are subject. Well, we have a webinar dedicated to that. I need a little button that just repeats. We have a webinar for that. But we do. Services subject to sales tax. But here's just a listing of the different services that are subject. Repair or installation of tangible personal property. If I repair appliances or I install TVs for people, that's a service that is subject to sales tax. Lodging services and rooms, that's subject to sales tax. Short-term space rental for making sales. The cleaning of tangible personal property. Parking and storing of motor vehicles. Telecommunication services, ancillary telecommunication services, and enriching of uranium materials.
Katie, in late breaking news,
Yes, I need to fix that.
enriching uranium materials is now not subject to Tennessee
That's
sales
right.
tax.
As of the
So if any of
last.
you people are out there enriching uranium, just know that that's a
Raise
change.
your hand in here if you are in the business of
Yes, I bet
enriching
you there's
uranium.
thousands of you here.
Nope,
Yeah.
don't see anybody. And
Anyway,
yeah,
yeah,
Billy's right
that's a
that was a law that passed in our most recent General Assembly session, and I need to edit that.
that's okay. I just don't
Um,
want to point that out real quick.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Yes,
no problem.
yes, appreciate that. A little more about what's considered repair of TPP. Work done to preserve or restore, mending, correcting, altering, refinishing, cleaning necessary of any repair, a service call where repair work is done or complicated, or changing the size and shape or content. Um, we got this question. I like to use this example of, our law does not specifically list a whole lot of things. It just explains things like this, okay? And same with the way we've interpreted law. Um, Unlike those, hate to bring up business tax, but remember I said specific items are listed under certain classifications? Okay. Well, in sales tax, we got a question a couple years ago that was interesting to me, and it was a business that took ball gloves, like baseball gloves, softball gloves, and wore them in, worked them in for you so it wasn't so stiff, okay? Uh, They asked, "Is this a service?" So in our TCA, the working in of ball gloves is not specifically listed. So our staff has to look and say, what do they do, and does it meet this qualification? We determined that that does change size and shape, or all changes the finish of it. Um, it was determined that that service would be considered repair. Uh, of TPP. So, a lot of questions that you have, we may have to even sometimes dive a little deeper into the law if it's something that's a little out there, something a little different. And we have to do that sometimes. We daily have to dive into the TCA or deep into our tax manuals or different letter rulings that we've had, because there's not always an easy answer. All right, we're going to talk now about sales tax rates. We've already discussed the general sales tax rate in the state of Tennessee is 7%. Any county or incorporated city can levy a local sales tax, and the rate is going to be 2.75 or less. There is a link here if you've got the PDF of, well, I'm sorry, you would have to go into this PDF to, I'm gonna, Billy or Dan, could you pop, I don't know if let's see if I can do it from, I'm gonna pop the link to this over in the chat, but I don't know that I know how to get to chat from.
What do you need, Katie?
I was just going to put here, I'm going to put this in the chat. Hold on. I'm going to send it to you over on the side. Okay, Billy.
Okay, gotcha.
This is just the link to, I should have done this with the business tax basics, but that, put it over in our chat. That's the link to this specific sales tax basics, because it takes you over these. I know you can't click on hyperlinks from your WebEx screen. You have to be in a PDF. So if you want that, to see what your local rate is, I was working with a restaurant just a couple days ago who was setting up their point of sale system and wanted to know what their local rate was, and I said, let's go look at it. We followed the local rates link. It's just like that business tax link. It's kind of a state of Tennessee where you can hover over the county to see what the rate is, or there's also a like an Excel format of it too. So the sales tax rate on food is actually 4%, and that is food and food ingredients. We're not talking food at a restaurant. That's prepared food. When we say the state rate on the reduced food rate in the state of Tennessee being 4%, we're talking about food and food ingredients. This is just a notice from a couple years ago that does a good job of listing what is considered food and food ingredients. But just in a nutshell, it's basically what you would buy on the shelves at the grocery store, okay? Not what you're going to buy at a restaurant or prepared food. It's not even actually what you'd buy at a grocery store back behind the deli case, like pasta salad or something. That would be considered a prepared food. But sales tax rate, state rate on food is 4%. Now that is going to be in addition to the local rate as well. There is something called specified digital products. We have a whole webinar dedicated to this, but specified digital products like audio-visual product stuff are taxed at a state rate of 7 and then a standard local rate of 2.5. That local rate does not vary jurisdiction to jurisdiction. That's for specified digital products. So in-state sellers, this blue box up here, if you are an in-state business based here in Tennessee, you're going to collect and remit local tax at the rate for where your business is based. Okay. That's all you're needing to worry about. Now, if you have no locations in Tennessee, so for out-of-state businesses, you're going to collect at the local rate of where your product is delivered. And that is for, of course, those out-of-state businesses that otherwise have Nexus and are required to register with us. And like I said, if you're an out-of-state business in here with us today, we do have a whole webinar dedicated um, to that topic. Okay, we're going to really briefly touch on this thing called single article tax. I think that we've determined that we are the only state in the United States that has something like this. It's kind of weird, but it is what it is. There's a webinar dedicated to it, single article tax, and it's basically a special taxation for items that are over $1,600 in price, where it's just like a single item. So pretty much like expensive items, like a piece of jewelry, a piece of furniture, a vehicle, maybe a purse. Pre-written computer software is considered single article. Just going to very briefly explain how it's done. But if you are a business that is going to be selling some high dollar items, I'm going to recommend that you watch the single article webinar and that you look in our sales tax manual for more information about single article, because it's weird. Okay, so the way single article is addressed is that the entire price of the item is subject to 7% state tax. Okay, nothing different there, but it's the way, it's what's next here. You see, the first $1,600 is going to be subject to the local rate, and then any amount between $1,600 and $3,200 is going to be is going to have an additional, what we call state single article rate of 2.75. All right. Uh, there's a way to do it on your sales tax return that's a little bit complicated. So for those businesses that are going to be selling expensive items, I'm going to tell you, you need to dive a little deeper into this, because I don't think it would be a good use of our time to dive too deep into single article right now, because it is just reserved for articles, single articles over $1,600 in price. So um, sales price for in terms of how to determine what that tax rate is going to be based on, what's the sales price that sales tax is going to be based on. All of these things you see listed here can be considered included in the sales price of an item. All right. The seller's cost, expenses, and charges for these things. Cost of the property sold, obviously. Cost of materials that you use to put into it, the cost of labor and services, incoming freight, taxes that were imposed on you. For example, if you were to have purchased something that you didn't use your resale certificate for, again, we'll talk about those in a minute, but let's say you just didn't have your resale certificate and you bought something, include that in the sales tax you paid for that, and then resold it, and include that in your sales price. You can recoup that, right? Services necessary to complete the sale, delivery charges, installation charges can all be included. All right, now we're going to start talking about some exemptions. There are some usage-based exemptions, such as pollution control. That's going to be supported by a valid exemption certificate. Now, when I'm talking about exemption certificates, I'm not just talking about maybe you as a business are going to be exempt and you're going to obtain an exemption certificate that you will then supply your suppliers. You'll give your suppliers these certificates so that you can purchase things tax free. I'm also wanting you to think of it from the angle of, as a business, you may be selling something that someone else is going to purchase from you using an exemption certificate. Okay, think about it from those two perspectives. So you've got back to some usage based, like pollution control. Remember earlier when I was talking about that almost all tangible personal property is subject to sales tax, just a few exclusions there, such as textbooks, school meals, some healthcare items. More of that in our tax manual, but they're very, very few and far between that an item is exempt from sales tax based on what it is. Very common are entity-based exemptions. So the government, U.S. government, state of Tennessee, and then Tennessee counties and municipalities do not have to pay sales tax when they purchase something from you if they provide you with an exemption certificate. I want to warn you here that the exemption certificate in Tennessee for this looks kind of like fake, because it's just something that they fill out, that the government entity fills out. but they provide that to you. If you any exemption certificates that you are provided with as a business, and then therefore not charging sales tax to whoever's providing it to, you have to keep that certificate on file. It's very important in case you ever get audited. Nonprofits do not have to pay you sales tax when they buy things from you. That has to be supported by either a Tennessee exemption certificate or their 501c3 document. There's an ag exemption, same thing, supported by that certificate. Same with qualified manufacturers. There's an industrial machinery exemption that they would need to provide to you. Lots more about exemptions in our sales tax manual, but as a dealer, as a retailer, just keep the main thing to keep in mind is that if someone provides you with an exemption certificate and says, I'm exempt, I don't owe tax on this, hang on to that. You can you will report exemptions on Schedule A. There is a Schedule G that is for temporary exemptions in the state of Tennessee. Our legislature every year usually it has some kind of temporary exemption periods for certain things. And these schedules roll into line 10. All right, now we're going to talk about the resale certificate. A couple hours ago, 7 years ago, I was telling you about how it's really important how you need to carefully choose your business start date for your sales tax account in particular, because when you start that, you may need, if you're going to have a retail business, you may need to go ahead and open that sales tax account up before you're ready to open your doors for business, because you need to use a resale certificate to purchase inventory. Very common there. If you do that, though, make sure that you let us know and reach out to us, or that you remember to go in and monthly file a 0 return on that sales tax account until you actually open and start selling things, and therefore having to remit sales tax. But what is the resale certificate? You're going to get this letter as soon as you open up a sales tax account, like immediately. And it is a certificate that allows you to purchase items that are intended for resale without paying sales tax on those items, because you're going to charge sales tax when you sell it. It is not for items that you are going to use. You can't use your resale certificate to buy shelving or racks for your store, or to buy cleaning products for your store. Only items that are intended for resale can be purchased using the resale certificate. You will provide that certificate or copy of it with with businesses where you're buying your products for resale. They don't expire, but they're no longer valid when your location is closed, and it's part of the closing procedures that you would go through when your business closes to do that. What else about the resale certificate? Also, earlier I mentioned when I was talking about use tax, if you were to buy something using your resale certificate and then ended up using it, let's say you've got a little grocery store and you had to pull a roll of toilet paper out of your inventory to put in your store's restroom, you would account for that on, I can't remember which line it is on your sales tax return, but you would account for it there. Another thing to remember about resale certificates is that you can search for valid resale certificates. If you're taking a resale certificate from one of your customers so that they don't have, so you make a sale to them without charging them sales tax, you can search for the validity of a sales tax certificate. Let's see, I thought I had a link to it the next slide, but I don't. On our website, I'll try to remember when I go over and show y'all TimTap later to show you that. One other thing about resale certificates, and this is straight from audit, they do recommend if you are making a purchase of items, if your business is going to make a purchase of items somewhere where you're going to be buying some things that are going to be for resale and some things that your business is going to be using. Let's say you're going to Costco and you're buying some cleaning supplies and maybe some decor for your shop, but then you're also buying some things for resale. Make that 2 separate purchases because you'll be using the resale certificate, not paying tax on the purchases that you're going to be reselling. Filing sales tax. Okay, when you first set up your sales tax account, it is going to be set up on a monthly basis where you're going to have to file on the 20th day of the month following the period every month. Okay, Once the account is open, the filing must begin, even if you don't have any sales and you need to file 0. So in other words, if I am going to be starting my business in January, but I want that resale certificate now because I need to go start. I'm going to market in Atlanta next week and I need to start buying inventory. Okay, I'm going to open up my sales tax account. I'm going to get that resale certificate. I'm going to use it to start buying inventory. But today's what, October 8th. I'm going to, by November 20th at the latest, the state of Tennessee Department of Revenue is going to be expecting me to file a sales tax return, but I haven't sold anything yet. I don't owe sales tax. We don't know that until you go in and it takes you about 30 seconds. You just say, no, I don't have any sales to report, submit, type in your password, done. Good. Okay. Just very important there. There is no option for filing extension. Again, same with business tax unless there's very extenuating circumstances such as natural disasters. Like I said, they're all sales tax accounts are set up monthly, generally speaking. But if you may qualify if you don't have a lot of sales to be able to file sales tax quarterly or maybe even annually, and that's something you can get more information about that on our website and reach out to us, and you can request for different filing frequencies that way. Just a few resources to share with you here. There's a web page with information dedicated to electronic filing and vendor software. Very common here. If you've got a point of sale system or any kind of software, you want to make sure it's all set up correctly. There was a business I was helping with recently that had their local rate set up wrong in their vendor software. That really messed things up. You want to make sure it's all set up right. There's more information about that here. Um, Billy, I just heard you cough, I think.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
That's okay. Um, there's a webinar dedicated to completing the sales tax return, a help video about that as well, and more information about filing in our sales tax manual as well. The webinars are more helpful about the filing. There's not a whole lot of information about filing in that tax manual. Some helpful webinars that we have done. Again, you can just search in the webinar video library the word sales tax, and you're going to come up with lots because this webinar was from a couple years ago, and we've probably done even more by now. But for example, we've got webinars about special events, marketplace sellers and facilitators, e-commerce, contractors, sales tax for contractors, the hemp tax. That's all changing soon. We're going to have to redo that one soon. The tobacco tax, we've done, at this point, we do have alcohol taxes and liquor by the drink. More information there. So that is sales tax basics. Again, let me turn on the chat. Hold on. Again, these topics could be full day webinars or a week long. We could have a week long webinar about sales tax. This is just the basics. So chat is on. We're going to take let's take a 4-minute break. Let's come back at 11:35 Eastern time, 10:35 Central time. Put your questions in the chat about sales tax. Let's stay on topic with sales tax for now, and we'll get to those questions when we come back in a few minutes. All right, I know that was a quick break, but just for the sake of being able to get to plenty of questions, we're back now. And before we get to that, raise your hand if you are sick of hearing my voice. I always feel like I'm talking so much on this because I am, but there's a lot of information. It's a lot of stuff. So sorry about that. Let's see here. What have we got, guys? Questions here. Oh, my chat bubble's not expanding. I did put another link to the PDF of that sales tax basics webinar in there. Where are we here? The link for the rates keeps coming back as a bad link. Okay. Sales
I
tax
just put
rates.
I just put a new rate link to the rate map out there
Okay,
just
let me
now.
go ahead and show them where to get to it just in case too. Hold on. Let me go
Okay.
back over to web browser. Let's go tn.gov/revenue. I'm going to go to the sales tax page. So taxes and then sales tax. Local sales tax, I think I can get to
Mm-hmm.
that by clicking
Right.
local sales tax here. And then you can look up this is a map.
Mm-hmm.
And then this is the spreadsheet, I think. But let's just look at that map. And then you can hover over the county in order to see what the rates are. So our legislature recently passed something where a jurisdiction can have a special rate for food. That's very new, and I think that maybe there's only one that has done that. Don't quote me on that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, here we go. No, 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 no. I don't know, but yeah. So you're going to see if you hover over each county, you're going to see what the local rate is and what the food rate is for each jurisdiction there, each municipality. And just to show you again, the way I got to that was by going to taxes, and then I clicked on sales tax, and then local sales tax in the section menu. I think this takes you over to an actual. Oh yeah, if you want to search just your search by address, you can do that here. Two different ways to search, either by the map or by searching by address. This would be very handy if you're an out-of-state business shipping into Tennessee. Just plug in the address here and it'll pop up what you
Yeah, and
need to
it's
know.
important to know too that when you're doing the out of state stuff, that if you're saying, oh, this says that it's in Murfreesboro, Tennessee. Well,
Right.
for the zip code, well, that address might actually not be in the city itself. It might actually be out in the county.
Yeah, in an
So
unincorporated area.
we look at the entire address when we determine the true location. Okay.
So definitely using this
Yeah,
tool
that
would be
way is
more helpful.
ironclad. That's going to give you
Ironclad.
a for
Yeah.
sure answer to your
Okay.
deal there. So, a couple of questions in chat, Katie, maybe we want to get to, and I'm not sure that we'll get to all of these because there's probably quite a few. Uh, Lanai, and I hope that, or Lene, I'm not real sure how to say your name. I apologize. My business is not required to file and pay sales tax. I want to confirm there's nothing I need to be filing annually or quarterly as far as sales tax goes. Right. If you don't file sales tax because you're not required to, then you're right. You don't have to. Other taxes would apply depending on your situation. Okay. Business tax being one of them, or business licensing, perhaps. Let's see. Natalie says if I sell under 4,800 so far this year, but I filed for a resale certificate, do I need to go and file monthly sales tax? Check your registration certificate that you should have received along with your resale certificate, and it'll tell you your filing frequency. Okay. So if you don't know what that is, or you can't find it online on TinTap or something like that, reach out to us, give us a buzz, and we'll look it up for you, and we'll tell you what you should be doing. Okay. And I'm trying to think of some other
I saw
stuff
a
here.
question in there about applying for sales tax, how to apply for sales tax exemption. I mentioned that there are several, we've been migrating all the sales tax exemption application and that whole process to online. Let me show you a place. revenues homepage here, I'm going to click on TINTAP. Oops, TINTAP. And then under exemptions, complete an exemption application. There are a few available here. It says apply for a sales and use tax exemption. Now you would have already had to have applied for, you have to have a sales tax account already. You can also apply for an exemption directly through TINTAP once you're logged into TINTAP and in your sales tax account. While I'm here, I'm going to squirrel out just a second. This is also where you can look up a sales tax certificate. Okay, if I click here, you look up the certificate type. So you're a business and someone has just handed you their industrial machinery exemption because they want to buy something from you exempt. You can look at that thing they're providing you, type industrial machinery to put in the exemption number, submit, and see if it's legit. You can do that for any type of sales tax exemption. Check it out, except for government. Theirs is the fillable one that I told you about, but all the
Right.
other exemptions, if you're questioning it, look it up here. So I'm on TINTAP and then just went to exemptions. All right.
Now, Erica asked a really good question in chat about when to register for sales tax or really any of the other taxes.
Right.
Erica, there's not a perfect answer to your question. Okay. It seems like you're just in the investigation section about where you're going to be setting up or whatever. But I will tell you this, sales tax and business tax and business licensing are all tied to a location. So if you don't have a location, it will be very hard for you to register. So we're going to have to know what that location is. And we do strongly encourage you to not register way in front of when you actually are going to potentially open up. But it makes sense to open up your sales tax account a little bit before you actually start taking in money and start opening. Because, like, and Katie may have mentioned this, is when you acquire inventory, you want to do that on a resale certificate, and you can't get that until you're registered. So if you're trying to buy food for your restaurant, as an example, like Erica might do, then that'd be a great example of why you need to register. But you do need to have that location so that we can get you registered properly.
And I'm going to reiterate because I've said it a couple of times now, but if that is the case, if you need that resale certificate before you're actually opening the doors to the public for purposes of buying inventory or stocking shelves, we still need to get a sales tax return from you monthly, even if it's just zero. That's the way we know you haven't sold. If we see you've got an open sales tax account, we're looking for that return to be filed. All right. So you've got to go in there and just takes about 30 seconds, file zero if you haven't sold anything yet. And then once you actually do open your doors and start selling, then you'll file actual amounts there. But if you have registered for sales tax and have a sales tax, have a resale certificate, just know we're looking for a return. And if we don't get one after about a month or so, you're going to get a letter in the mail from us saying, hey, where's your return? And if you don't fix it then it's going to move into collections, and all of that is avoidable if you just file that zero. Let's say you're on here and you didn't realize and you've had a sales tax account but you haven't been filing. Call us like today and let us know that. We'll explain, we'll help you get through that. And show you how to file the zeros. You can go in and file zeros. You can even, uh, you'll have a little bit of a penalty on there, on a late zero return. It's still going to be what, a $15 penalty, something like that.
Yeah.
But
And Dan put the phone number for the call center in
yeah,
here as well. And that's great because some of the questions you guys are asking are very account specific.
right.
And of course, we can't discuss your account in a public forum because of disclosure law, but we do want to help you. So if you give us a call, we'll look up your account either based on your account number or your social security number, or your federal ID number. We'll find what the current status is of your account. We'll let you know exactly what you need to do. If there's something undone, we'll let you know what's going on.
Hmm.
If you just have general questions about registration and you don't understand if you've registered correctly or what to do specifically, reach out and call us or send us an email, and we'll provide this contact information later again as we sum things up here in a little while as well.
I want to address a question
Yeah,
real quick
go
from
ahead.
Daniel. It's a good question. He says, when I go to returns on TINTAP, I don't see a link to file. Great question. Here at the end of this session today, we're going to talk more about TINTAP, but when you're looking for when you're logged into your specific TINTAP account and you have added your tax accounts, then you will be able to file it there. Just the returns tile on the TINTAP basic page before you've logged in is going to be non-log-on returns that are available to you, which that's not something that's available for sales tax, for business tax, and that you would have to be logged into your TINTAP. If you're saying, Daniel, that you're on your TINTAP, you've already created your username, password, you've logged in. One reason why you may not be seeing a return to file there might be that you haven't added access to your account yet. Sounds kind of like, well, when I get TINTAP, why are my accounts not just not there? There's many reasons for that, but it's just a step you have to take once you get logged into TINTAP. Again, we're going to go over this in a few. You have to add access to your accounts, then you'll see how to file. But I think what you're talking about is you're just there on that TINTAP page, not logged in or anything, over where I showed you exemptions and all that. You're not going to see how you file your return. You have to be logged into your account. I'm afraid that I've been too chatty and that we're going to run out of time unless. Oh wait, hold on. Daniel says I am logged in. Daniel, if you have registered, if you have added access to your sales tax account and are still not seeing a way to file a return there, reach out to us. Or it could be
It could
that
be
maybe
that you're
you're
on an
on a
annual
monthly.
filing status and it's not January
Right.
yet and
It
it's
could
not
be that.
populated. There's a
Could be
lot of
that.
there's a lot of ifs, ands, and buts, guys.
Yep. Yep.
As far as that goes, one real quick question, Katie,
Yep.
before you move on. Blake asked a question about he is saying he's filing sales tax monthly. Are we required to pay monthly? Yeah, absolutely. You got to pay what you owe. As far as that goes. By the way, if you don't owe anything, you still have to file. We have to know that your sales taxes, your sales were zero, as an example. And if we don't file a return for every period that you're required to, we will send an assessment. And you don't want to pay the assessment. You want to file the return. And by the way, you can also schedule your payment. So if you want to file a return, sales tax is due on the 20th. So for September's payment, it's due by October 20th. Well, here it is as we record this today on the 8th, right? You could file it and you could schedule your payment to come out today, tomorrow, or on the 20th, you know, and then go ahead and knock that out and get a confirmation number and not try to race to the very end to be trying to file and pay right on the deadline, because that is a recipe for disaster, quite honestly. It happens quite often, and we try to work with folks, but don't make it any more complicated than you need to.
That's really good advice. You do not want to owe penalty and interest. Anything you can do to avoid that, the better.
Okay,
All
I'll be
right,
quiet now,
so
Katie. Thanks.
we're going to go ahead and close down chat again so we can focus, and then we'll have time at the end to discuss the stuff we're about to go over. So we're not going to spend too much time on F&E right now. All right, I'll be honest with you, franchise and excise tax is something that typically is handled by your accountant. It lines up very much so with your federal return. If you so basically, we're just going to explain what F&E is, the basics of it, and show you some resources. Just like with sales tax and business tax, I'm going to take you over to the franchise excise tax basics webinar. Okay. Okay, tn/gov.gov/revenue. Back to our home page here. I think you get the picture now about how the basic tax page is. I'm going to go ahead, just for the sake of where I feel like we're running out of time, I'm going to take you over to the F&E Basics webinar. So I'm on our home page. I'm going to click on Taxpayer Education, Tax Webinars. I'm just going to type in the word basic here. And franchise excise tax basics. Here we go. Here's the PDF of this. This was exactly a year ago now. It was the October 2024 webinar. Sorry, I don't, Billy, Dan, sorry, I don't know how to get to the chat from when I'm in my web thing, but can y'all, here's the link over to this. Can y'all put that over in the chat, or can somebody,
I
hopefully it'll
will.
work.
I'll be
That's
glad to.
the, thank you. That's the, this is the link directly to the F&E Basics webinar. Okay, so y'all are used to this drill now, right? All right, the excise tax and the franchise tax are imposed on corporations and most LLCs for the privilege of doing business in Tennessee. Sounds kind of like the business tax. That's a privilege for doing tax for the privilege to do business in Tennessee too. A lot of people get confused. These are two separate taxes. Franchise and excise is a combined tax called F&E tax. That's one tax. The business tax is another tax. It's specifically called business tax. Some people think F&E tax is the business tax. No, those are two separate tax accounts. F&E and business tax are two different accounts. The manual for F&E is same as the other manuals, really good. All right, so what is F&E tax? So this is something that changed about a year ago, or for the last fiscal year, the 2024 fiscal year. But for the franchise tax is for tax years ending on or after January 1, 24. Franchise tax is only computed based on your company's net worth. Okay. Prior to that, for tax years ending on or before 12/31/23, franchise tax was computed a little differently, but then there was a big law change. It used to be computed on the greater of either net worth or the value of your property owned or used here in Tennessee. But now for today's purposes, what's in red here, franchise tax is based on your net worth. Excise tax is based on your net income or loss. Simple as that, right? It's not. All right, registration. So entities that are subject to F&E, you've got corporations, limited liability companies, limited partnerships, real estate investment trusts, and business trusts. If you are a sole proprietorship or a general partnership, you are not subject to F&E. You can kind of turn your ears off here for a minute if you're a sole prop or planning on being a sole prop, unless you just want to listen in case you ever consider switching to an LLC or something. This is something that you would need to think about. So very early on today when I said that corporations, LLCs, everything you see here listed as an entity subject to F&E, those entities will need to register with the Secretary of State. Well, we share information with the Secretary of State. When you register with the Secretary of State, we get information. We know who's registered there, therefore we know who's liable for F&E. Unlike business tax, though, and getting your business license, registering your business with the Secretary of State does not automatically register you for an F&E account. You have to physically come in and register with us for F&E. All right, you have to go through that. So parent companies and subsidiaries do need to register and file separately. An exception to that is that an LLC that is 100% owned by a corporation is included in that parent company's in that corporation's return, and financial institution captive REIT affiliate groups file Form FAE 174 on a combined basis. So you are subject to F&E from the formation or date operations began with Nexus in Tennessee. So let's say you registered with you registered with the Secretary of State, you know, in October of 2025, but you don't register for F&E until January of 2026, you're still going to be subject to F&E tax based on the date that you formed and began operations in Tennessee. There are several types of exempt entities from F&E. I won't read through this whole list here, but just want to call specific attention that the numbers 10 through 17 here, entities owned by armed forces, qualified low-income community historic structures, obligated member entities, asset-backed, all these fonts, family-owned non-corporate entities, these you have to apply for the exemption. Okay. As well, they may also require audit evaluation, but you have to apply for and then annually renew that exemption. Not renewing it on time, you get a penalty for that. Next is for out-of-state entities. Not going to spend a whole lot of time here either, but this is a slide I want to spend some time on because it's different than the other taxes we've talked about so far. So um, the franchise excise return, this whole timeline, by the way, assumes that an entity has a December 31st fiscal year end. Okay. So the F&E return by the 15th day of the fourth month, you have to either file and pay F&E, file and pay for an extension, or file and pay the $100 minimum if your business has had no activity but is still registered with the Secretary of State and hasn't been terminated. You'd still just owe that 100. If you file that extension, it gives you a 7-month extension. That was something that changed a few years back. It used to be a 6-month extension, but if you pay that extension, which paying for the extension does it, we'll talk about that in a minute, but then you will have until November 15th to actually file the return. Some entities, depending on how much you have filed for in the past, are required to file 4 estimated payments. They're not exactly quarterly because you can see they don't fall exactly on the quarter, but your first estimated payment's going to be due on April 15th, again assuming a 12/31 fiscal year end. Your next one just 2 months later on 6/15, your next one on September 15th, and then your final estimated payment will be due on January 15th of the next year. So returns, extension, and quarterly estimate payments are all done through either the Modern E-File, like the IRS's Modern E-File MEF program. Here's a link to certified vendors. You can also do them directly on TINTAP, but online filing is required. So that extension, how do you get an extension? Extensions are very common. Like I said, it's a 7-month extension, and it will be granted if by your due date, so for a 12/31 fiscal year end, if by April 15th, the Department of Revenue receives either 90% of your current period's liability, 100% of your previous period's liability, or just $100 if the previous period does not exist, then you will be granted an extension. So basically, once that financial requirement is met, the extension is automatic. And extension payments, it can all be done through TINTAP. If you have a valid federal extension, it's a valid extension with us as well. So estimated payments that I was telling you about, you're going to be required. If you're brand new, you don't have to worry about this yet because you haven't operated for a year. You don't have prior tax year yet, right? For those of you that are in here that have already been operating and have had F&E, listen up here. So you're going to be required to make estimated tax payments when there is a combined F&E liability, tax liability of $5,000 or more after credits and everything for both the prior year and your current year. If that's the case, then you're going to owe those 4 estimated payments throughout the year on TINTAP. All right, we're going to talk a little bit about penalty and interest here. If you have a valid extension and you file timely, you've paid this certain amount by the original due date, you got your 7-month extension, and then by the 7-month extension deadline you file. Let's say you kind of miscalculated the amount owed and you owe more than you thought you were going to be owing. There will be no penalty applied there, but there will be an amount of interest on just the difference between what you paid in and what you end up owing. All right. Invalid extension or return not filed by the extended due date, if that extension was not done correctly, not filed correctly, and or you did not file by November 15th, if that's the case with you, then penalty and interest are due on the balance of tax due from the due date, from the original due date until you pay it. A little bit complicated there, but so delinquency penalty, this goes for all tax types, is 5% per month with up to a maximum of 25%, and there's a minimum $15 penalty on any late filed return. Interest is changing. It is always changing. It changes every July. So you'll see a link to the current interest rate. There's a few other pieces of information on penalties here. For if you've got a late estimated payment, if you're subject to estimated payments and we receive your estimated payment late, the penalty is assessed at 2% per month up to 24%. And then remember I was telling you, but there are a few of those exemptions that you have to apply for and renew every year, like the fonts exemption. If that exemption renewal is late, there's a $200 penalty. Penalty can be waived in special circumstances, especially if you've got a good filing history. It's a very easy process on TINTAP. Unfortunately, interest by law cannot be removed for any reason. So, but penalty can be. All right, we're going to talk about a minimum filing. This is for businesses that are not active but are still registered. So you've had no income. Basically, maybe you maybe it's right now October 8th, and you've registered with Secretary of State, but you're not really starting your business until next year sometime. Remember when I told you that you're subject to F&E from the date of formation? All right, so you obviously haven't done anything with your business yet. So this is an easy way to just file what's called the minimum return. And that is something you can do without even logging in. You go to TINTAP and go to returns, view return links, and just click on the minimum $100 F&E tax. It'll ask for a little bit of information about your account, your entity ID number, some other pieces of information. You pay the $100. You want to do that, even if, just kind of like we've talked about with sales tax, even if you're not selling anything, you got to file the zero return. There's no zero return for F&E, but there's a minimum, which is the 100 that will be due, and you don't want that to be late or want to ignore that, or else then you're going to have penalty and interest on top of that. We're not going to spend time right now talking about the computation of the tax. If you want to know more about the computation of franchise, excise tax, filing the return, it goes a little bit in depth here. I recommend watching this webinar, asking questions about it to your tax professional that you have for your business. When you go to sell your business, you're going to have to, if you're selling your business, you will have to provide tax clearance and a letter of good standing, and also to terminate your business with the Secretary of State when that comes time. We work together with them. So I know I really breezed through F&E real fast, but it's complex, and just hopefully you got a good basic understanding of what it is. Before we open up questions about that, I just want to go over a couple more things. Other tax accounts, I showed you where the tax web pages are. So if you are a restaurant that's going to be selling liquor by the drink, you need to take a little bit of time. We've got a liquor by the drink manual. We've got a liquor by the drink webinar, things like that. If you're going to be selling tires, motor fuel, tobacco, we're just not going to go into detail about any of those today. Something else I want to mention to you guys, general tax account information. We already talked about with F&E delinquencies, but basically penalties and interest apply to any deficient or delinquent payment. So deficient meaning you didn't pay enough, all right? If it's late or even not late, but you didn't pay enough, penalty and interest is applicable. Penalty of 5% of the unpaid amount is added for each month or partial month that the payment is delinquent or deficient. The max penalty is 25%. Interest is always computed at the current rate. I failed to recall what that is right now. I don't know what our current rate is. So there's a process that unfortunately you never come to this, and hopefully hearing this right now, this will never happen to you. But if you are ever late with a return or with a payment, after 30 days, you're going to get a letter called a proposed assessment. If it's just that you didn't pay enough, that assessment's going to be what we think it should be. If you didn't file at all, our system's going to come up with an estimated amount owed. You don't owe that. You need to just go in and file to find out what you really owe. That notice of proposed assessment will go out after a 30-day late return.
Hey, Katie, something real quick for
Yes,
the group.
sure.
Um, hey, if you get a letter from us and you don't understand it, call us or send us an email, please.
Amen.
Do not ignore it and do not stick it in a corner or do like one person did one time, told me they said they didn't know what the letter was about. It came from the state, so they just threw it away. Well, we can't help you if you can't help
Yeah.
yourself either. So it's important to know that these things stack up. we'd rather help you with your problem up front. A lot of times we can eliminate the problem at least partially and maybe even completely. Yeah, but we do need to communicate with you. Okay. So help us help you out on that.
That Billy, that also goes for if you think it doesn't apply to you. For example, I've seen this happen before where somehow when things got set up, the taxpayer business set up duplicate accounts inadvertently, and they filed and paid their tax. But we had this duplicate account over here that the taxpayer had set up, not realizing it, that wasn't getting filed on. So they were getting a letter in the mail for us saying, "You didn't file," and they were like, "Yes, I did." They should have called us and explained what's going on. Let's talk about this letter. They would have caught it then rather than getting into the collections process. Again, a lot of things are fixable. We could fix that, but it's still a pain, basically. Back to getting the letters, getting the first letter, which is that notice of proposed assessment. If you ignore that and don't take any action on it, don't go in and file and pay, then about a month later, you're going to be in collections with us, and you're going to get a call from collections. And then, unfortunately, not dealing with it at that point can lead to some really unfortunate things. We do have a webinar for that, tax compliance and the collection process. So it's one of the not fun things that's a reality. But again, if you're a new business, I'm going to recommend that you check out that webinar at some point just so you can make sure to avoid the pitfall of falling into the collection process. All right, closing your business. We have had a whole webinar dedicated to this now. There's a link to it. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this because you're a brand new business, but just to call to your attention that when the time comes that you do close your business, don't forget, we've got a resource out there about all the little steps you need to take and everything you need to do in order to close correctly. Back when I did work in our collections division for a time, I would say that there was a vast majority of businesses that fell into collections that either just were confused about what they were doing, didn't realize, maybe they got a business license, didn't realize it opened up a business tax account, they ignored it, ignored letters, whatever. So many businesses that fall into collections have closed, but just didn't close properly. And that does not negate the fact that you may still owe penalty and interest on delinquent returns that our system was expecting because you didn't close properly. So not fun. Don't get into that position. Don't. Okay, I'm going to plug through here to TinTap. Yeah, let me just go ahead because we got about 20 minutes left because this is real important. And then hopefully we'll have at least a few minutes for some questions at the end. Um, as Billy said, TinTap, this is where you can register for accounts, all filing. This part, you can schedule payments in advance. Lots of other stuff. Like I said, main thing is it's like online banking, but for your tax accounts. I want to really stress this right here. All taxpayers should have access to the master TinTap account. Um, Even if someone does all your taxes, you as the business owner needs to have a snapshot of that. Your accountant, your bookkeeper, whoever's, they can have access to your accounts as well, to your tax accounts, to go in and file and pay them, do everything. But you need to be able to pull up your tax accounts and see if everything's in good standing. Um, every year around tax time, we'll have businesses call saying, I can't get in touch with my accountant, or my accountant is no longer, they've retired, or God forbid, maybe passed away, something's happened, and I need access to my accounts. Okay, on the front end, just make sure that you have access to all your tax accounts on TinTap. Some resources that we have, Revenue Help. It's a tile from that main tn.gov page. You click on Revenue Help. There are hundreds and hundreds of help articles about all topics, all of our tax types and everything, but really, I think just about everything that you can imagine being an issue or question about TinTap, there is an answer to it in one of these help articles. Just wanting to tell you about that. I already showed you where TinTap was. You click on the TinTap tile from the Revenues homepage. A little feature I want to tell you about here that is helpful is the TinTap Assistant, the little chat bubble. This is a bot, but it will automatically search our entire TinTap help database for you. And then if it's not shooting out the answer to the question, you can immediately click on send message, and that sends us basically creates a help ticket on our end that our support staff will, we get to those super quick. You can also call us. There's a direct link from that chatbot over to how to call us, but um, the revenue assistance kind of, I like to call people's attention to that because it can be a quick way to find answers if you need help with 10 taps. So going back again real quick, once you have tax accounts, if you've registered, if you've gotten your business license and therefore your standard business license and therefore have a business tax account, right? Or let's say you did a non-log on, registered your business on TinTap, um, registered for sales tax, okay, or a FNE or something. That does not automatically create a TinTap account for you. You have to go in and in TinTap go to, you'll see this little username password. You don't have that yet. You need to go to create a logon. You'll create a username and password. It takes about 5 minutes to go through that process. Once you get logged into TinTap that very first time, you won't see anything. You won't see any of your tax accounts. You need to go to, so basically this is what it looks like once you're logged in, but this Jim Jones Corp has already added their tax accounts here in this example, but you're not going to see that at first. You're going to go to more, and then I'll show you here in a minute. Then you're going to go say gain access to an account. But in this example that we're looking at right here, this is what it looks like after you've gained access to your accounts. You all can always go to TinTap Home here. Manage My Profile can walk you through some like payment way to set up your payments, your automatic payments, stuff like that, basic information about your business. But this little tab, these are the different tabs on home. If you're a CPA or a third party that's on here today, you know, yours looks a little different. You can see your different clients, but this is just for the master account holder. So you can see this they have a business tax account. You see they're in green. That means good. That means they don't have a balance with that. If you're looking at this and you see something in red, that needs to catch your attention and figure out why. Out beside each tax account, you'll be able to see how to make a payment, view some additional actions. Like for business tax, that's where you can view also your license, your business license, if your jurisdiction participates in sending licenses through to TinTap. Oh wait, that's right here under additional actions. There will be, if you have an outstanding return to file, there will be a link right here that says file this return if there is one available. So that's right now we're on what's called the summary tab within TinTap. I don't know a lot of people who have favorites that they have, except I think maybe a lot of CPAs and third parties have that. But anyways, there's an action center. I think the next. So when you click on Action Center, you're going to see if you've got any unread messages from us, if any of your tax accounts have a balance due, if there are any returns to be filed. Action Center, and you can see here there's a little superscript here that says 3 that'll tell you if you have anything. So when you're on your home page and you see something there under Action Center, click on it and see what are they telling me I haven't seen, or what do I need to look at. From those tabs, if you click on more, this is what you're going to see. Manage accounts. That's where you're going to see how you can register a new account. Let's say you've already got business tax and you're in here, you've got TinTap, and you need to register for sales tax. This is where you can do that. If you have not even yet gained access to any of your accounts and you don't see any accounts yet, you're going to click gain access to an account. I will go ahead and tell you that you'll need some information there, and it's mainly just what's your EIN or social, whichever you're registered under, what's your account number, and the easiest way to verify is through something called a letter ID. So here's the point I'm getting at there. If you get any letters from us after you've registered for an account, save that letter, because information on that letter is going to give you what you need to be able to gain access to the account. If you've lost it or misplaced it, you can always call us and we'll verify that you are who you say you are, and that you're either the business owner or authorized representative of the business, so on and so forth, and we'll help you gain that access. But that may be why you're not seeing Daniel, who asked at the last break why he wasn't seeing a return to file. It could be because you don't have your sales tax account, or like Billy said, it could be because you're not set up to file monthly. But make sure you have access to your accounts. Some other things you can see from the More tab is you can request a payment plan. Uh, this is not where you're going to set up like your bank account information to be able to link your payments to it. That's over in Manage My Profile. You can print certificates and do some other things through additional services. You can manage who has access to your tax accounts. With you being the master account holder, this is where you can manage that. You can know if a CPA or your bookkeeper has added access. You can add access for your personal assistant to be able to do certain things with your tax accounts. This is where you're going to change names and addresses like DBAs and your address. Changing a location address is not always something you can do easily here if you're changing a location address to something outside of your current jurisdiction, that's going to require you to go back to the county clerk's office. But just changing within a jurisdiction or changing your mailing address or primary address, this is where you do that. You can view all the different letters that we've sent. I've got it cut off a little bit here, but this is kind of important. This is all the submissions that you've made on TINTAP. You can search it by date. It's going to have recent submissions as well as a way to search through certain dates where you've submitted stuff through TINTAP. All right, I'm going to go ahead and open up the chat again. And I know we've covered a lot, y'all. This is for any of your questions, whether it's stuff we just now covered about TINTAP or about F&E or anything that came in your mind from business tax or sales tax. We've got about 8 or 9 minutes here. As you're putting your questions in chat, I'm going to go ahead and go over this. All businesses, I recommend following us on every way possible. We're not over posters, but if there's ever anything important that you need to know, this is the way. You either follow us on Instagram, you can see all the different ways here. You can sign up for email updates by the link that we've provided here. Okay, we've talked about this a lot. Email us or call us. Here is how you email us, revenue.support@tn.gov. Our main tax line is 615-253-0600. We are around from 8 to 4:30 Central Time, Monday through Friday, unless it's a federal holiday. And we have employees now that work in different on Eastern time zones, so sometimes we're here a little bit earlier than 8 a.m. even. So I've always been told that our customer support is the best of any other state. We are very responsive. You'll get a real human being on the line if you call us, unless it's April 15th or maybe the 14th. Even then, it won't take long. But like Billy said, don't wait till the 14th or 15th. I'm a procrastinator, so do as I say, not as I do. But you will get a real human if you email us. It creates a support ticket on our end. You'll hear from us very quickly. Sometimes we need a little bit more information from you in order to, so maybe going back and forth a little bit, but both ways are fantastic ways to reach out to us. If you are one that likes to kind of research yourself, I hope that we've provided with you to you today ways that you can search for your answers yourself as well. That's my type. Before reaching out, I always like to see if I can find answers, but we're here to help if needed.
Katie, take a breath.
Yes. No. Okay, I'll let you talk for the next
Oh my gosh. Okay. So
6
anyway,
minutes.
it's a lot. Katie,
It
you've used
is.
up all your words for today. That's for sure.
I know I'm gonna tell my whole family I'm mute for the rest of the day.
I understand.
That goes for my boss too. I'll tell him that.
Oh, you please do. I heard that guy's kind of nuts. Oh,
Yeah.
wait, that's me. All right. So anyway, so well, we got a lot of questions, don't you know? Who needs to file franchise and excise? Well, we sort of hit the high points of that, and it's basically LLCs or corporations and a few other entities that are subject to that. Sole proprietors and partnerships are not, and that's your general rule on franchise and excise tax. It is not business tax. It is another type of tax. It is not a tax. You don't have to be a franchise of a business to have franchise and excise tax.
Yeah, that's
Think
a
of it like
common
corporate
misunderstanding.
tax. Think of it like that. Okay. And I believe someone says, well, why are there two different kinds of tax, business tax and franchise and excise? Because the state legislature passed it. Quite simply, that's it. There are two. And it's quite possible that depending on how your business is structured, you might owe both. Okay. thankfully, business tax, the rates are super small. So, and especially just starting out here, many of you may not owe us any business tax. You may just have to have a minimal activity license, as an example, until you reach that $100,000 level. Okay. Um, do we happen to record this? Yes. So as we said earlier, we're recording this. It'll be posted on our website later on.
I'm going to
We
show them
have,
where real quick, Billy, while you're looking for
yeah,
another
yeah,
question real
yeah.
quick. I'm on tn.gov/revenue. You're going to go to taxpayer education and outreach and then new business tax workshops. That's where you're going to click to be able to see the recording. It'll be right here where this one is. This is an older, this is our most recent one. This is where you'll find today's webinar.
Uh-huh. And CPE, you'll get an
Yep.
email when as soon as you get out of this, and it'll help you determine if you need to get your CPE credit. And Katie will tell you to make sure you put your name in correctly so that we put your name correctly in your CPE if you happen to be needing that credit today. Sales tax is labor service exempt from sales tax. Labor by itself is normally exempt, but if it's sold in conjunction with the taxable sale of tangible personal property, which most of the time it is, then it's subject to sales tax. Okay. For instance, if I get my car repaired at the shop, I'm going to owe sales tax on the parts and the labor as an example. So that's typical. That's very typical as far as that goes.
We've got a webinar. I need to know a little button again. We got a webinar for that. There is a webinar that is dedicated to services
Uh-huh.
subject to
And
sales tax.
there are that, and Katie gave you the list. Remember the funny thing we were talking about at the enriching uranium and all that,
Yeah.
and how that is changed now. But anyway, that is there are just a few standalone services that are subject to Tennessee sales tax. Uh, Estimated taxes you can pay franchise and excise estimated taxes on TINTAP, and just by making a payment and then choosing estimated payment as your payment type on that. One thing Dan was pointing out to one of you is about how you don't want to pay an estimate if you get a bill in a proposed assessment. You want to actually file and pay the actual tax. So there's a little bit difference in terminology right there, just for you to think about too. Okay.
Couple
Um,
contractor questions here that just came through. If a taxpayer installs
mhm.
real property such as bathroom remodeling, oh, it just jumped. I hate when that happens. Bathroom remodeling, would the products or installation labor be taxable? Installation of tangible personal property is subject, but installation of real property is not.
Yeah. So
Um,
let me talk about that situation there so you
yeah.
understand. This is like a 900 word thing in hopefully 90 words. Okay. Contractors generally are the users and consumers of materials that they use in performance of their contracts. Okay. What does that mean? That means that when they go to supply houses to buy lumber and sheetrock and paint and all the stuff that they buy, then they have to pay sales tax on it. Okay. What they don't do is charge their customers sales tax on that material nor the services that they're providing. Okay. But what a contractor like Katie's husband is, and what she would tell you, and he would tell you, is you're going to bid that project to make sure that you have enough profit so that you're not eating all of that cost when you went down to the local supply store and bought your materials, right? But you're not really charging that to the customer. Now, Katie mentioned tangible personal property, and the labor involved with that is subject to sales tax. For instance, lucky me, I'm going to have a washing machine delivered tomorrow to my house because my other one broke. Yay! Super fun. So anyway, that is going to still be tangible personal property because they don't have to attach the washing machine to my house. And no, we're not talking about the hose. Oh my goodness, that's not the same thing. I'm talking about building it into the wall. you know. So they're going to drop it off, and have paid sales tax, and I've paid sales tax on all the other charges relating to that, which includes that service. Okay. So I've already done it. So I know I paid sales tax on it. So yeah, that's an example.
Hey, Stan has a good question here. We're down to the wire here minute-wise, but I know that we can view all returns filed in TINTAP, but can we view all payments made for an account? I don't know, Billy, of a way to view
Uh,
all payments.
I,
You have
I don't
to,
think there is,
yeah,
Stan, and I wish there was like a super duper easy link to click on to
yeah.
show all the payments. I don't think there is, not
Mm,
yet anyway.
mm-mm.
We're always looking at ways to enhance the system, and hopefully we can do that soon. But yeah, that's a fantastic idea. But unfortunately, you got to kind of drill down and look up all that information, and it's
Mhm.
kind of a not great thing. How about that? And I'm sorry about that, but it's the truth.
So Anna has said in TINTAP, where do we pay estimated taxes? Um, you can go to make a payment within, so you under your
Mhm.
franchise and exercise account. So you're right here. You can go to make a payment right here out beside of there. And there is an option where it will say type of payment. You can choose estimated payment. If we receive an amount, even if you didn't specifically say, hey, this is an estimated payment. If your F&E account receives an amount that covers what you would owe for an estimated payment, I think that counts, right, Billy? But or does it
It
have to
it
be,
does it
yeah,
does, but
it's
it
better
really
to,
needs to be classified as an
yeah.
estimated payment if possible.
Right,
And by
right,
the way, you can even do that not even logging into TinTap. You can go
right.
right to our TinTap main page and go into the payment section. As long as you know
TINTAP,
your account number, then you
TINTAP
can.
payments,
Mhm.
and then you would click on if you're using a debit card. I'm sorry, if you're using a credit card or debit card, it's here. If you're using your bank account here,
Right.
and one of the options will say what kind of payment are you making here?
Right. And
Yeah.
then it's basically just choose
Oh wait, y'all,
estimated
I didn't.
payment.
Am I sharing my screen?
No, you're not on that,
Shoot. Okay.
but your words were beautiful.
I went over to it myself. Where I went just now, y'all, was
Here we go. You're starting to show now.
revenue. I wonder how often I do that. Nobody tells me. I'm just like, "Blah, blah, blah." Okay,
That makes it
TINTAP.
open.
Sorry, I was in it at another time. TINTAP, payments.
Mhm.
This is for if you're using your bank account. People get confused by that. This is not for a debit card. This is for your bank account. This is for a debit or credit card, any card. And then after you do this, you'll put in your account type. After you put in account type, later it will say what type of payment. If is it an
Right.
account payment? Is it a return payment? Is it an estimated payment? You'll see that option.
Right. And you'll only get estimated payment on franchise and excise tax
Right,
as an example, right?
right.
And Terry, like we were saying there on installing cabinets not being taxable for the purposes of the customer, that's right, because you're installing those into real property. But a new stove that's just being slipped into the gap between the cabinets there and plugged in or whatever, yeah, that's a great example of something that is taxable versus the cabinets, which would not be.
Billy, you know that these things come in three, and if you just had to get a new washer and dryer, there's two other appliances coming up in the near future that you
I
have to
need you to not
replace.
even talk like that
That's what
because
happens.
we don't want that to happen. We're going to stick with the one thing and be done with it.
Well, y'all, we are nearing the end here. You've been a great group. Lots of really good questions
Yeah,
on this.
thank you for all of your input and all that, and hopefully we've been helpful to you today. Katie's done a good job of going through this. It in 3 hours, it's not possible to cover every nuance of everything, y'all. And the best news that I would like to say to y'all as a group is you are new business owners and you're trying to educate yourself, you're trying to get
Yeah,
right and be right on your taxes. That's great. So let us
kudos.
just be your partner as you go through your business's life because you know we're here to help you. We do answer the phone when you call us. We reply to your email when you send it. Okay, so you're not alone, and we will help you. And if we don't know the answer, we'll try to point you in the right direction.
And hopefully we've given you a good enough tour. I know I bounced around a lot of where some key places on our website are. The tax pages, the tax manuals, the webinars, revenue help, TINTAP. We just to let you know, a few upcoming webinars later on this month, filing the F&E return. Next month, our webinar is refunds and penalty waivers. And then in December, books, records, and statute of limitations, and of course a link to our webinar video library. So again, thanks to you all for being here. If you do need CPE credit, just answer those questions as you exit. And for those who don't need CPE, we still ask you to take a moment to fill out the survey, just a couple questions. Let us know any feedback you have, and have a great rest of the day and good luck with your business. Like Billy said, we're here to partner with you and help you along the way. Don't be so confused about it to where you fail to call us. Just let us know.
Thanks, everyone. Have a good day, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.